Hey, thanks for stopping by. You got your little thing that's like, this meeting's being recorded.
Yep.
All right, so we'll get started. How you doing this Super Bowl Sunday?
It's cold, man. It's fucking cold. I know we were just talking about it, but it is cold out.
Yeah, I woke up. So my dad had to go into work today, so I know he did some shoveling, but then,
Hmm.
my mom was doing some food shopping and stuff, so I had to go out and shovel the driveway. And thankfully it's not too freezing, but like after a while it
Yeah,
was like, all
but
right.
I don't know if you know, if you can agree with me on this, but it feels like it's been snowing more than it has in the past couple of years. Like it's just, at least
Mm,
where I am, it's just been fucking snowing every week, man.
I think it's been colder where I am because, on Long Island, the wind chill especially, I don't know if it's been bad
Yeah.
for you, but that
Oh yeah,
really
it's
makes
bad.
it brutal.
I was just checking the weather right now, man. It's gonna snow on Tuesday and Wednesday. So it's like, God damn
Yeah.
it.
And the funny
Yeah.
thing, it sucks about snow these days, even though it doesn't really affect us now. But like when we were kids, we would have snow days. But
Yeah.
I have family members who are teachers. Because of Zoom, you
Yeah.
don't have
They
those
ruined
anymore.
the
It's
snow day. Yeah.
it's just, oh yeah, you just log on to the computer and now we're
Piece of
gonna
shit.
talk about
Can you
stuff.
imagine, dude? Oh my God. That would
Yeah.
have been such a nightmare. Dude, the snow day is like a part of American culture.
hmm
Man,
And
poor
and
kids.
in the future, they're not going to know. They're not going to know about the snow day. Although I
Damn.
think some schools still do it. I know on Long Island, I think some districts still
Hmm.
close. But
Thanks.
from what I've heard
Yeah.
about the city schools, nah,
Yeah.
they're just like get on Zoom. And then of course you
Yep.
hear about kids that they're not paying attention. They're
They had like
just
they might have like two or three designated snow days a year, like
hmm
to use, like in their bank, they've
yeah.
vaulted three or so school days where they're like, okay, if it snows too much on this day, we don't need to do a Zoom. We can just do a snow day. But I don't know if they use those. I don't know if they add up. You know what I mean? Like it's like
I
over
remember there
years, they probably
was
don't.
like a quota or something because I remember it used to be a thing that like if you went over a certain number of like snow days or days that you had to close schools, it would extend the year
Yeah,
in
yeah,
like
yeah.
June because I think that might have happened in 2012 with Hurricane Sandy because like schools were
Maybe.
closed for 2 weeks.
I don't even remember that. But yeah,
Yeah. But anywho,
a long
to
time ago.
jump into the episode,
Yeah.
hello there, and thank you so much for visiting your local comic Sean. I'm Sean, and today Tyler, aka Comic Boy, has stopped by to talk Batman: The Dark Knight Returns. If this
Good
is your
book.
first, good book, good book. If this is your first time listening or watching, visiting your local Comic Sean is a podcast where we normally talk comics in a book club style format. The titles guests and I are reading can be found on my socials at local Comic Sean, well ahead of new episodes discussing them, and new episodes drop every Monday at midnight. For audio listeners, this podcast can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and SoundCloud. For those who prefer video, the podcast can also be found on YouTube. Please feel free to follow or subscribe on your platforms of choice. If you like the show and you want to support it, I encourage you to subscribe to our Patreon. I swear I will post something one day.
Damn.
Subscribing gives you the opportunity to see behind the scenes content, learn how the podcast gets made, and or gain access to resources for both reading and digital creation. Thank you to all who subscribe to the show in any way, shape, or form. I truly appreciate it. Without further ado, let's get started and talk The Dark Knight Returns.
That
I am
was
excited for this one.
very, very professional, man.
I'm
Jesus Christ.
trying.
I'm
I
not
gotta be
used to
honest.
that.
The whole point of this show and the inception
Yes.
of it is honestly just to catch up with people and like talk comics because it forces me to
To
read
read them.
because
Yeah.
back when I was at the newspaper, it was really encouraging me to read week to week and stay up to date on everything. Once I left, I fell behind on everything. I binged The
Hmm.
Walking Dead instead, and
Good book.
yeah, but I'm now behind on DC. I'm behind on Marvel. So now it's kind of like I'm trying to catch up. I'm trying to finish
Hmm.
Invincible. I only have 20 issues left. Um, but I'm really excited to talk with you about comics because I have no shame in saying that you probably know at least 10 times more about comics than me.
I
And
don't know, man. I
you
I
just
just
have such
have
a way and like a passion when you talk about things that it's
I
just
just think
fascinating
they're
to listen to
neat.
you.
I don't know if I know 10 times. Like I think about this sometimes. I'm like, if I run into like when you are out or maybe you're at work and there's people that, it's like water cooler talk where it's like, oh, did you see the Superman trailer?
hmm
And I'm like, I gotta gauge. I'm like, I know everything pretty much that I could talk about in this. But would this person understand a single word I'm saying? I have to be
Hmm.
like, am I talking at the I'm talking at the water cooler level. I'm not talking on the podcast level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I gotta do that.
Yeah, no,
It's tough.
I'll have those like things like I had earlier this week at the office. I had one guy come up to me. So what do you think of the Fantastic Four trailer? I'm like, I'm cautiously optimistic. We'll see.
Yeah.
I think I know you're like really banking on both Superman and Fantastic
I
Four
have
being
to.
good
I
movies.
yeah, man.
I'm cautiously optimistic on both
I
because
got Fantastic Four poster right here
yeah,
off screen.
there's things though like I'm not fully sold on Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor, even though I love him as an actor. I
Okay. It's,
I'm
it's an
not.
interesting one.
I know, right? And Saint, what's the other thing with Superman that has me on the fence? Just Guy Gardner. I'm just on the
Yeah,
fence.
and I figured you were gonna say that.
I like Nathan Fillion, but I'm just like, all right, we'll see. And then for
Mm.
Fantastic Four, I'm I'm on the fence about the '60s aesthetic. I think it'll be. I know. I think it will be extremely
Isn't that the
interesting,
point?
but I hope it sticks the landing. I hope it's not like,
Yeah,
you know,
that's a strange.
right?
Wow. Okay. I'm not so sure about the point of the movie, but I think it's like, oh shit. I think it's I don't know. Obviously I think that it's sick. The 60s. Because I was thinking about it today. I'm like, man, if it wasn't a 60s, if it was just gray MCU, I'm like, this would not be hitting the way it seems to be hitting.
Yeah,
Might
I'm
not. It might not.
cautiously optimistic. I will
I'm
see.
more
I'm
okay if
holding
Fantastic Four
judgment.
sucks than if Superman sucks.
Mm.
I guess.
Well,
Not that
yeah,
I'd
because you
want
already
it to.
have a universe that you're satisfied with, but DC,
Yeah.
everything's hinging on this one.
And I think people like the Fantastic Four, but people do not really care about Superman at all. So,
Yeah,
you know what I
yeah.
mean?
You know what? I do feel like that might be the common ethos. I do feel like I've heard somebody at work be like, Superman's just boring. And I'm like,
It's exactly it. It's like, or people don't know anything about the Fantastic Four to have an opinion on them, but the
yeah.
opinion on Superman is that he is boring.
I mean, I grew up like those were some of the first movies I saw to get me into superhero movies was the
The
2005
Fantastic Four
and
movies,
Rise
yeah,
of
of
the Silver
course,
Surface. Yeah,
of
and like
course,
I
yeah.
remember like when I was a kid, I don't know if you did this, but I did this because I was such a nerd. I would actually dress up to go to the theater, and I had
No,
like
it's
I had a
okay. No, I never did
yeah, no, that
that.
was me. I had a Human Torch costume. I think I wore that, and then I also had like the
I
Thing
definitely
gloves
had. Okay, well, everyone
because
had
I
the
was
Thing gloves.
5.
Everyone
So
had the Thing gloves, right?
yeah.
Dude, this year they're selling Red Hulk gloves and Thing gloves. What a weird
Uh,
year. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I know I played those video games, the Fantastic Four movie video games.
Hmm.
I had some of the figures. I did like the Fantastic Four movies. I watched them now and I'm like, okay, these are not very good. And I think there's a
I can
weird
enjoy them though.
yeah, I think there's a weird nostalgia going on right now where I think people are overcorrecting where it's like, okay, maybe these movies aren't the worst, but they're not peak.
Yeah,
Everyone's like,
no.
oh, peak. No, it's not. They never were. Galactus is a cloud. Have we not forgotten that Galactus was a cloud?
Galactus is a cloud, and Doctor Doom is like a guy that just
A
slowly
rich
starts
guy.
turning to
Yeah.
metal.
Yeah. Yes, his skin turns to metal, which I know
Yeah.
his universes weren't. Whatever. Whatever.
What? Yeah, but once I obviously you know more about Doctor Doom than me, but that's
It's a
not
goat.
Doom.
Yeah,
It's
no,
not
it's not
Doom.
Doom. Not Doom at all.
Yeah,
I love
and
Doctor Doom.
even Doom on the Silver Surfer board, which don't get me wrong, was cool
Was
watching it in
sick.
2008,
Yeah.
but it's not Doom. Um,
Yeah.
so my usual intro question to open up things and introduce people is how familiar are you with comics, the Marvel DC
Wow. Okay.
universes? Have you ever read any comics before now? I don't think I really have to ask you this. You want to just
Because the
introduce
answer is
yourself?
no. Yeah, the answer is no.
Yeah, I don't think this is your
God,
first book, right? Dark Knight Returns,
yeah, it's
first
my
thing you ever
first
read?
book in general. Yeah, I've never read
Yeah.
it before. God damn it. I just want to be like, yeah, I've read a lot. I've read a little bit. I know my way around this stuff. I'll say.
Hmm.
I think I think that I can say that I
Okay.
know probably more than your average person, maybe a little bit more.
Just a bit.
Uh, just a
Just a little
bit.
bit.
Um, yeah, big fan. I like comic books, and then I think they're fun. I think they're good. I think they're good for the kids.
Yeah. I gotta be honest, the whole reason I love comics is you can never get tired of them. And it's not like
There's
a
just so
show
many
where
different
you have
types
to
of them.
wait 2, 3 years now for something new to come out. You can
Yeah,
just pick
monthly.
up old stuff.
Well,
I
yeah,
love that
and
there's that bank.
yes, and of everything. Like I guess the reason I love comic books so much is because it's not a genre, it's a medium where you can explore literally any genre of anything with an unlimited budget.
Yep.
And that's I think the exciting part. It's like no matter how niche or how silly or how goofy. You don't need actors, you don't need CGI, you don't need any of that. You need two people to just do it together, and then that's it. And that's
Yeah.
all that it should be. And that's at its peak, obviously. That's all that it should be.
Hmm.
And I think that that's cool. I
And
think that's
sometimes
neat.
you only need one person because Frank Miller
Yeah.
both
Or
writes
yes, exactly.
and
Yeah.
draws this
That's very
book.
true.
So
Yeah, that
just to
was a
give a little bit
good
of the
segue. Yeah.
history, this book released in 1986, four
Yep.
issues.
Same year as Watchmen.
Yeah, both written and drawn by Frank Miller, but we
Yes.
also I looked it
Inks.
up. The creative team
Lynn
is the
Varley.
same across the board. So you got
Yep.
inks by Klaus Janson,
Tick
colors
Johnson.
by
Yeah.
Lynn Varley,
Yep.
and letters by John Costanza. So
Yes.
it's nice when you have the same creative team across the whole book, especially now when like
Yeah.
things fluctuate so much.
Yeah,
Um,
and Miller and Lynn Varley and Klaus Janson are like they're like a classic, I guess, trio. They did a lot of the that was a lot of Daredevil they did together. A lot of his Frank Miller stuff that he's
mhm,
drawn at least. I'm pretty sure like 300, Sin City, that's like his team.
yeah. And so, just to give a bit of a play-by-play, not getting into all the details, but of the four issues, the first issue is the Batman, gets the drive
Yes.
to, after being retired for 10 years, he gets the drive to come back as Batman
Yes.
because of
That
all the
issue
crime.
is actually called The Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then it deals with Two-Face, who's like reformed, but then slips back into crime. Issue two is Batman dealing with the mutants, which is the gang that has taken over Gotham.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Issue three is him dealing with the Joker, who's now, because Batman's come back, he's kind of woken up from a comatose state
Hmm.
to be like, oh, all right, one more hurrah with the Dark Knight. And
Yes.
then issue
Issue four
four,
is the Batman Superman fight from the movie. Is
Batman
the movie
Superman.
Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice?
Yeah, which, of course, was
I
a
love, big
direct.
fan.
This,
Yeah.
it's crazy when in this book they said their mom's name was Martha and they stopped
Yeah.
fighting. It was
Hmm.
it was really wild seeing how that was like a direct
Was
adaptation in
it
the DCEU.
was it interesting seeing some of those scenes and stuff from the movie and then reading this and being like, oh,
Yeah.
that's how it was adapted?
Well, the funny thing is, I knew all the story beats initially because DC came
Hmm.
out with the animated movies.
Right.
And I
Yes. Yes.
watched
Yes.
that when I was younger because they actually came out two movies, but if
Yes.
you
Part
put
one,
them
part two.
together, it's a 3 hour just epic
It's
movie.
awesome. They're actually
And
really good.
it's really good to rewatch. And it's funny. It's, a few episodes ago, we did talk about another book you love, All-Star Superman.
Yeah,
And
it's a good one.
yeah, comparing the movie to the book, though, I feel like the movie
I,
does the Batman under the Red Hood thing where it kind of trims off the fat of the
yeah, I had
book.
never seen the All Star Superman animated movie.
Really?
No.
It's more of like it kind of has that under the Red Hood feel where like it's a
Interesting.
streamlined version of it. Like you
Hmm.
don't have the Jimmy Olsen taking over the science lab for a day. You don't have any of the Bizarro stuff. I feel
Okay, well,
yeah. So like
I'm
you
just
kind
gonna
of
read the
trim
book at
that
that
off.
point then.
Ah, all
I
right.
think it's interesting you bring up All Star Superman because I think I've thought about this a lot. I think that that book and this book are kind of very similar. I think that All Star Superman is often portrayed as like a good, entry level Superman. Like, no, 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 no. That is the Dark Knight Returns of Superman. That's the end of Superman. That's the last Superman story. And
Hmm.
so I think that this is the same thing, obviously. This is the end of Batman. This is potentially, the last Batman story if you're going to follow the character. Um, and so I think it's when you look at this book, I think a lot of people, when I read this book for the first time, you read it because it's the top of the list, right? It's
Hmm.
like when you look up Batman comics, this is always number one. It's this or year one, both fucking Frank Miller books. But it's usually this.
Hmm.
And not even when you look up Batman comics here, when you look up comic books to read, this is usually near the top, right? And so when I was like 13 or 14 or something, probably younger than that even. And so I went to my comic book store and I was like, all right, I'll read The Dark Knight Returns. Right. It's like one of the first comic books I ever picked up and read, especially one of the first Batman comics I ever picked up and read. And I'm just like, what the fuck is this? Like what is this? This is incomprehensible. I'm a child. This is an
Hmm.
adult book for big boys. And there's like themes and depth and like motifs and stuff like that. And I
Politics,
yes,
there's,
exactly.
all kinds of social
Yeah, all this
issues.
stuff. And I just could not. I was like, I was on the train of that this book sucks and was overrated. Right.
Mm,
But then in the time I've grown up and I've reread
yes.
it it's one of those books for me at least that you reread every couple of years when you're a little bit smarter and you gain
Hmm.
something new out of it. And I just think, like, I think this book deserves all the hype. I
It's
think that
funny
this
you
is
say that because
unbelievable.
when I watched the anime movies, when I first started getting into reading comics, I did try to read it and I saw like the old fashioned artwork, not old
Yeah.
fashioned, but like it was a bit older compared to newer stuff. And
Yeah,
then
and all the
also
words on the pages, man.
it a lot of text and like all the
Yeah.
news broadcast stuff. I
Yes, those
remember
are so tough.
yeah, and I remember going to read it at the time and being like, all right, I'll just watch the animated movie. I don't think I really need to read the book
Yeah.
version. Now reading the book version, I'm like, okay, there's a lot of interesting
There's a
things
lot
that
in
you
here.
get from the news broadcast. I really like the news broadcast in the
Yeah, well,
book.
yes, those are integral, I feel.
Yeah, because also one thing that I find really interesting is, you know, it really shows the effect Batman has on the city and the world, even to like
Yeah.
treating him as a scapegoat. Because like you get that one page where it's the guy that is basically just nuts and th feels that Led Zeppelin is like worshiping the devil or
Yeah,
whatever, so
yeah,
he attacks a movie theater, and
yeah.
they blame it on Batman. They're like another Batman
Yes.
inspired act of violence, and it's
Yeah,
like
yeah. And
okay.
they're like, there's a news there's one part where they're like, oh, they're talking about how Batman's a bad influence on kids.
Hmm.
And it's like, I think
Which
that's
is cool when they pair it with Carrie Kelly suiting up
yes. Well,
as
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Robin.
Maybe he was a bad influence on her, yeah. But I think that this book has so much to say. I think this book has somehow become more relevant. I mean, obviously incredibly relevant when it came out, but like
Yep.
it's timeless. Like it has not aged in
Hmm.
those themes and in those just trying what it's trying to say. It is not aged at all, I feel.
I had to remind myself it wasn't Alan Moore because Alan
Yes.
Moore, a lot of
Yeah.
his books feel that way. And then I'm like, no, this is a
Especially
Frank Miller one.
same year, man. Watchmen, this. I don't know
Yeah.
what was in the water over at DC.
Hmm.
It's crazy.
So usually the first book, not book, first question I asked to open up the conversation, what did you think about the book as we
Good
read
one.
as a whole? For you, you reread it. This is the first time I read it.
It's a good book. I think it's amazing. I think it is the best Batman comic. Oof. I think it
You
is.
still would give it that award.
Yes, I think it is. I think people say that. You know what I mean? I think that that's like a general consensus. Yes, if you asked 100 people, this would probably be the top of the list, right?
Hmm.
Um, I think I'm comfortable still saying that. I mean, there's so many good ones, but this for me is like the peak of what a Batman story can and should be.
Hmm. So now, what do you especially like about the book?
Jeez. All right. There's a lot, man.
As
There
you
is a
unroll your
lot.
scroll and you're just like, all
Yeah.
right, let's go down the giant list.
Which logo is on this? I want to see real quick. Oh yeah, it's got the folding pages logo. God,
That was the
this is an
2000s one, right?
this is the new 52 one. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Um, what do I like about this book? I like. I think Frank Miller has a very interesting finger on the pulse of what Batman is.
Mm,
I think that there's no one that can quite discuss what this guy is, why he does what he does, and the ramifications of it in a real world like
hmm.
Frank Miller does. And I think that that's something that this book and to a lesser extent year one kind of nail about the character. And I think that's why those are the two most important, most popular Batman comics, is because I think Frank Miller just understands something about this character in a way that no other writer before or since has been able to get.
Mm. Not even Chip Zdarsky. They
Oh,
both wrote
it just
Daredevil and
ended, didn't
Batman.
it? It did just. Oh, that's true, man. Yeah, I no, not even Chip Zdarsky. Surprisingly, oh,
So, is there anything you dislike about the book?
that's a good question. Eh, I think Frank Miller's art is good. I think it's a bit. It obviously goes down the hill, like
Stated
when you
a
get to
bit,
Dark
yeah.
Knight 2 and whatnot.
Hmm.
Um, I think it's kind of. I think it works for what this is,
Hmm.
but only because he wrote it too.
Yeah.
You know, and but I don't think that's really a con on this book. I think his art is amazing, especially Batman looks
Hmm.
really good. I don't think there's anything really per se that I dislike about this book.
All right, so then to just jump into talking about the book and everything, any thoughts that and moments that really stand out to you about this book? Go
I'll
down the
ask
rabbit
you.
hole.
You tell me what was your favorite? because I could talk about any of this, but what do you think was the standout moment? I love Frank Miller's voice for Batman. Do you ever seen a line that he says?
Yeah. Which one?
Do you? I'm asking.
Oh, like a line that stood out to me about Batman.
Yeah,
So something that I was gonna ask later on, and we could get into it now, because like this book really had an impact on the characterization of Batman
Batman
moving forward
forever. Still, yeah,
forever. Yeah. And so, part of me, I really love the internal voice of like Batman and how he's kind of nuts in this
he's
book.
different. Well, yeah, it's portraying Bruce Wayne as like kind of a split personality. Batman
Yeah.
exists inside of him.
Yeah, where I think the first issue stood out to me the most because going off the animation, the moment that I always loved the most was it wasn't the Superman fight, it wasn't anything. I really liked when he takes on the mutant leader at the
In the
pipe
mud pit.
in the mud pit
Yeah,
because that's always the coolest scene. I
yeah,
love how, you it's just this brutal street fight to
yep.
discredit and tear down the leader. And I love the line of, uh, this is an
Is an
operating
operating
table
table,
and I'm the
and I'm the
surgeon.
surgeon.
In
Yep.
the book, it was kind of quick. It was really only like
Yes. Well,
two
it's one of those things
pages.
where it's like I don't think there's plenty of lines in this book where I don't think it's two panels, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think that he quite knew how relevant or how popular this would become.
Yeah.
It's like Watchmen. It's like that line, the Rorschach line everyone loves where he says, "I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked
Yeah.
in here with me." He doesn't say it in Watchmen. It's something that someone
Mm,
says he said
yeah.
in a moment, but he
Hmm.
doesn't say it, but it's attributed to him as this epic moment of Rorschach. But it's like that line is so iconic. This isn't a mud hole, this is an operating table and I'm the surgeon. That's
Hmm.
iconic. That is an iconic Batman line. It's not even it's an afterthought. It's just something that's like, I'm just gonna
Yeah.
cool
And
line.
then it breaks the guy's leg or
Yeah.
arm while he does it. It's just,
Yeah.
it's so cool. However, what really stood out to me reading the book is honestly the rebirth of Batman when he's watching the TV.
The
Because,
beginning, the very beginning.
towards the very beginning, because, you get
Mm-hmm.
him walking and he gets, some mutants show up to him to attack him in Crime Alley. And he slowly starts to like really be like, I want to get back to being Batman and get back to, stopping this super rise in crime that has gone on for the last few years. And,
Yeah.
he starts kind of like having the slip ups of the split personality where he goes
He's in
down
the
to the
shower.
Batcave. Yeah, he's in the
Yeah.
shower. He goes down to the Batcave just to see, and then he starts to go up the stairs because Alfred stops him. And Alfred's like, "Where's your mustache? You had a mustache," and he's already shaved it to like
Yeah.
start getting back. But it's really that moment of him sitting in the chair, and the mark of Zorro comes on, and
Mm-hmm.
he's immediately like, "I should change the channel." But then there's that part of him that's like, he wants to like get fueled by it because he's like, it's
He
just a
wants to
movie.
remember.
I
Yeah.
shouldn't have a problem with it. And then he does. He starts remembering everything. And so he does eventually change the channel, but all he's seeing when he changes the channel is just reports of crime in Gotham and just,
Yeah.
people getting killed, people, all this stuff going on. And he can't ignore it anymore. I thought that
Yeah.
was an awesome sequence.
I think that is so cool. Yeah, I'm looking at it now. It is. I love the idea of so Bruce is obviously retired at the beginning of this book.
Hmm.
Did you know, you Jason Todd head, that the suit in the glass case in this book predates the actual version of that in the main canon.
Really?
Jason died in this before he died in
Right. Because Death in
Death
the
in the
Family, what
Family.
was that?
88?
1989?
Yeah, 88, 89. This is 86, yeah.
That's
So it's isn't that
crazy.
interesting that this is and he specifically says, Alfred specifically says at some point, I think, or they mentioned
Do you
Jason when
remember
Jason
Jason?
died.
Because it's
Yeah.
when Carrie, joins Bruce in the Batcave after the fight
Yes.
at the what is it, the dump.
Yep.
And yeah, like
It's
he's all
later,
like,
yeah.
she's perfect. She's just what I need. And Alfred's like, all right, I'll just come out and say it. Do you remember what happened to Jason
Yeah,
Todd?
exactly. So I think that's very interesting that this comes first. This
Yeah,
is
that's crazy. I mean,
yeah.
and it makes you wonder if that means I would
Influenced
assume
it.
that this book partially inspired,
Well, yes,
the
there's actually a
mullings of that
lot.
decision.
There's a plenty that this book inspired in the main canon. In this book, we get a version of Green Arrow who is
One arm, right?
missing an arm.
Yeah.
It's because he said that Superman made a decision. He was attached to a bomb. Superman made a decision that saved his life but cost him his arm. And all he's like, just might as well have killed me. I'm an archer.
Mm.
You know, in the 90s when they killed off Green Arrow, it was because his like arm got stuck in a bomb, or it was like the same exact
Mm.
scenario
Man, what's with
from this
archers losing their
book.
arms? Because I know Roy
It,
loses his arms in a
yes.
what is he, when does he lose it? Prometheus cuts it off, right?
Yeah, let's not cry for justice. Yeah. But I think that's very interesting. There's so much from this book that has come out and inspired. Like you said, this has just changed the character of Batman forever. I think because you listen to people talk, pre Keaton,
Hmm.
the cultural version of Batman was Adam West,
Yeah.
where Batman's campy, Batman's silly, it's Batman and Robin and their Technicolor. And this book is a direct response to that. And it's Frank Miller kind of reminding people that Batman was not always that
Hmm.
Batman was this vigilante who stalked the night uh, because his parents were murdered.
Hmm.
And so there's always this inherent darkness, this inherent grit to the character. And I think that part of the reason Batman works so well as a character in general is because he can be both of those things. He can be the silly, campy thing and the Dark Knight. But this version is distinctly saying, no, this is what Batman is. Batman is this avenging angel. He's the Dark Knight, and he's not Adam West at all.
Yeah. It's funny because
And
my dad also like will do that rant where he'll be like, "I hated the Adam West Batman because he's
yeah,
not supposed to be silly like that, and
yes,
sound
my dad
effects."
loves Adam West Batman.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah, so
My dad hates
but
it.
it's interesting. You get that opinion because I think the appeal behind Adam West Batman, I think it still holds up, man. I think
Hmm.
Adam West, what he said, and this is genius, is he said that for children, it's a serious drama, but for adults, it's a comedy. And that is the
Mm.
intention. That is the point of the show, is that you get both of those audiences. It knows it's silly and campy, but it can go over that line to the point where it's serious to children that don't
Mm.
understand that it's silly and campy.
Mm.
So like Batman and Robin on a lunch plate being put into a boiler by the Penguin, that's super silly to an adult, but to a kid, it's like Batman and Robin about to get burned to death.
Hmm.
You know, it's awesome. I still love that show, man. I think that show is good. Um,
I don't think I've ever really seen much of the show. I know
the movie though,
I've seen the movie. I've
movie's
seen the
good.
movie.
Yeah,
I always find it funny at the end. It's always just the best joke where it's like they restore the United Nations and then they're all
yeah.
just talking in the wrong languages and they just kind of go, well, all right.
It's so good, man. Adam West.
Yeah.
But anyway, this book is not Adam West. That is distinctly part of the reason to make this book, is to remind the audience that Batman is not that.
Hmm.
And I think that, like we were talking about, Frank Miller has such a way around Batman as a character, the kind of split personality where Batman is not necessarily like this mask that Bruce puts on, where it's like Batman is like this thing that takes over Bruce,
Hmm.
where it's like Bruce Wayne. Because I always think Batman is kind of a hero in reverse, where it's like if Spider-Man, the whole point of Spider-Man is like, okay, Peter Parker needs to figure out how to be Spider-Man, right?
Hmm.
Peter Parker, um, and I've said this before, but Peter Parker's origin is him being Peter Parker, then becoming Spider-Man. And it's
Yeah.
the same with like, Superman and Captain America. It's like, how do I become this symbol? But Batman in his original debut is just Batman. Bruce Wayne is a character in the book, and then Batman is a separate character in the book. And at the end, the reveal is Batman is Bruce Wayne. But you're
Hmm.
supposed to look at Batman as something different. Like Batman is not this guy. Batman is this force of nature that just pops in every
Hmm.
once in a while to where he should not be. And it's against like the laws of nature. It's like, how did he get here? How is he beating us all? It's like Batman is just good and he fights evil, you know?
Hmm.
And so, in a way, it's like Batman is in reverse, where Bruce Wayne's whole thing is like trying to figure out how to just become that kid again. All he wants
Hmm.
to do is just be the kid before he walked down that alleyway. But Batman is inside of him telling him, like, no, that kid's dead. You will never be that kid again. You've got to do this. This is what we're meant for. And I think that the kind of fun of the character is those budding things where it's like, okay, how do I be Bruce Wayne again? It's not how do I become Batman. It's like, how do I become Bruce Wayne again? I think
Mm.
that's what's really cool about that character. Because you don't get that with other characters. Spider-Man's never trying to figure out how to. He's literally trying to figure out how to be Peter Parker day to day, but
Mm-hmm.
like he's never thinking of himself as anything other than Peter Parker. But Batman is this thing inside Bruce Wayne that's like, no, you are me. I'm not you. You are me. You know, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that that's fucking fascinating about this character. I think that is so weird. It's like what a crazy guy. And this is the guy, like this guy, Gotham is so shit that's the guy, that
Mm-hmm.
crazy motherfucker is the only person that can protect them,
Yeah.
you know? And I think that that's where you get the camp of the character, where if you think about it for 2 seconds, it's ridiculous, but then there's so much depth to it too, you know?
Mm-hmm.
There's so much that goes into this character. And I I don't want to say that people don't get that or that that's underrepresented, but I do think that partially because of this book, he has become something else.
Well, I thought you would kind of be not against this characterization of Batman. It's interesting to hear you talk about how much you love it because the question I was going to ask you later is, how do you feel about the impact that this book has had on the characterization of Batman?
Yeah,
Because really, when people try to adapt Batman, they try to
it's
capture
this.
this voice, and it's the DCEU,
Yeah.
it's that kind of stuff. So I feel like I thought you
Yes.
would have been a little more against, the impact it
Mm,
had down the line.
well, I don't think that I can blame Frank Miller for that, though. You know what I mean? It's like I think that this exists on its own as its own thing, and it requires you to think about it. You have
Hmm.
to think about what you're reading in this. The point is that he's trying to tell something that is different from your regular monthly Batman fights a ghost or whatever he
Hmm.
was doing, in the 70s and 80s.
Honestly, yeah,
And
because if this was 86, I've read some of like the early Jason Todd issues, and yeah, he's
yeah,
fighting like just villains you've never heard of like since. Just
yes, yeah,
I one of
exactly.
them was like there's some guy with a skull head that like I
Oh,
think is
yes.
you know what
Yeah.
I'm talking about? The one with the
Yeah. He's
knife?
like, yes. Yeah. Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
God, Mr. Something. I don't know.
Yeah.
He's in Graham Morrison brings him back eventually.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
yeah. But yes, that's basically what Batman was up to. Is that Batman was silly,
Hmm.
and that this requires you to think differently about it. I think that this does capture the heart of the regular Batman. I don't think that this is that far off. I think
Hmm.
obviously the world is and the universe is, but I don't think that this version of Bruce is that far off from your regular. I keep wanting to say 616, but your regular Earth Prime
Earth
version of
Prime.
Batman. Yeah.
Or I guess what would it have been? Earth
Earth
1
Zero.
pre-crisis? Or no,
I think
this was
it's
post-crisis, right?
this was the year of Crisis, I guess.
Yeah, because it was across
Uh
85 and 86, I believe,
so it
for
would have been
crisis.
Earth, it would have been the only Earth,
Yeah.
I guess. So just Earth Zero, right?
Hmm.
Um Batman. I don't think that this is that far off from that version of Batman if he was put in this position, I guess. But I think that this does have really good commentary on that version of Batman, like that Frank Miller is trying to say
Hmm.
about because I think that this is not just obviously there's a lot of political commentary and stuff like that and social commentary, but I think that there's also a lot of meta commentary in this book about the character and what he's kind of fighting
Hmm.
as a book, as an idea, you know?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
if that's how you feel about Batman in the book, how do you feel about your boy, Superman?
Superman? Superman's interesting. I think Superman, you know about the Byrne era of Superman, right? John Byrne.
Not much, no.
So John Byrne is the one
Pretend
that
I'm
picks
an
up
idiot this whole call.
Superman. John Byrne picks up Superman post Crisis,
Okay.
and that is when Superman's starting working with Reagan, and he's becoming like,
More
I'm not a
Americanized.
Kryptonian, I'm an American, that kind of
Mm.
thing. And I'm fine with that. I really don't have an issue with that kind of version of Superman. It's not that he works for Reagan in the regular universe. It's that he's like he's the president has his ear in case they need him. And
Hmm.
on a concept, Superman being there when the president needs him, sure, he's Superman.
Kind
He's
of
the first
reminds
one
me of
you'd
like
call.
Invincible working with Cecil.
Cecil,
Like,
yes, but instead, if Cecil was literally the president of the United
yeah.
States, yeah, because Cecil has to work in the background, but Reagan
Hmm.
has photo ops with Superman.
Yeah.
But in this version, he's just working for Reagan. Now,
Hmm.
I think that maybe this is surprising. I think this version of Superman gets a bad rap. I think that there's so much going in here. When this version of Superman is clearly working for Reagan, not with
Hmm.
Reagan. He's working for the president, for the United States, against all these forces that can be perceived to be against the US.
And he's kind of like a secret weapon, right?
Yes, is that
Because
they
it
send
doesn't
him
seem like
they'll
he
send him
has any
last.
public face. Because I know when he shows up in issue three
Well,
initially,
he is yeah.
he's kind of like a ghost moving there throughout the city. And the news is kind of like you have that one broadcaster who goes almost like powerful than a locomotive, and they're like,
Yeah.
"Don't say that. You're gonna get us in
I
trouble."
think I think people know that Superman is around and they know
Hmm.
that Superman still does stuff because I think that the characterization of Superman in this, and I think that is kind of overlooked about this, is that he's the only one that's left. He's in
Mm.
this world. There's no superheroes left running. Not that they're all dead or anything, but they're not costumed anymore. They're
I
not doing
forget
their
what
job.
happened with Diana. Do they talk about in this book
That's in the next one. That's in Dark Knight 2.
too?
Dark Knight Strikes Back. Yeah. Oof, you don't want to know what's going on with Diana.
I was gonna say, was
Um,
it Dark Knight Strikes Back, and then what is it? The
Dark
Master
Knight.
Race is the third one.
Yes. Yeah. Weird name for a book, man. But I think that this version of Superman, he's the only one left, right? He's the only superhero that's left in a costume saving people around the world. And
Yeah.
so I think that with that is the burden of it, where it's like, we are outlawed. We're not allowed to do this anymore. And I'm carrying all of this on my back. There is no Justice League, there's nothing else. And the only way that I can do this is if I work with the president, if I work with the United
Hmm.
States, because otherwise, then I'm their enemy.
Yeah.
So I have to carry all of this on my back. I have to do this. Otherwise, none of us can do this anymore. Otherwise, there will be no hero or symbol for anyone in the world anymore. And so I think that when you look at Superman from that perspective, it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Where because he's not a stooge necessarily in this book, he does talk back, he does fight back, and he lets things go.
Hmm.
My favorite part of this book is the ending
The
where
fight, or when
not
he
no not the
winks
fight.
at Carrie.
Yes, when he winks at Carrie, because that for me it's Superman. Bruce Wayne fakes his death, and they're at his funeral, and when everyone leaves, Clark Kent is left, and he sees a little girl with a shovel at his grave, and he looks at her. He hears Bruce's heartbeat. He gives her a wink. He walks away.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you know what? Bruce is my friend. Clearly, if he's going to this length, he's got something important to do. I trust him. I'm going to let him do his thing. I'm not going to tell anybody about this. I'm going to let him do his thing. And I love that. I
Hmm.
think that is so cool. And then the
He
last
did what
line
he
of the
was
book,
ordered to do. He did fight him.
he did what he had to do. He didn't do anything more, you know? And I love the last line of this book from Bruce, where he says that this will be a good life or good enough. And it's a perfect closing to the book, where it's like we've had this whole commentary in his head about
What would be a
if
good
it's
death?
what would be a good death, and it's not about a good death, it's about a good life at the end, or at
Hmm.
least good enough. And I think that that's really good. I love that moment with Superman. I like the fight. The fight's awesome.
Fight is
Not
awesome.
as awesome as I think it's hyped to be, but I don't think it's supposed to be that awesome. I think it's supposed to be tragic.
Hmm.
Like there's the only way that that fight works is if it's a universe where they were friends at some point.
Yeah.
And so that's why this one works, because obviously they were.
Hmm.
And it's got the suit is iconic. The whole thing is iconic, that especially that fight in particular. That whole
And
thing is
and of course
iconic.
the line in your darkest moments or your most private moments, I
Yes.
want you to remember the one man who beat you.
And he didn't
Iconic.
even. Yes, but he's also lying. He didn't beat him.
Yeah.
He had a heart attack. He faked a heart attack. He was not going to win. He was not going to win that fight.
Yeah.
Um, there's that moment where he picks up the Batmobile and he rips off the thing and carries in it, and he's like, "Isn't today a school day?
Hmm.
Like, isn't it a bit late? Like, you're a child. Why is Bruce recruiting more children?
Hmm.
Love that. It's so good.
I will say the Batmobile in this one, I
The
remember
tank.
from first watching the animation, I always went, I was initially hesitant at liking the story because it just felt so against what Batman, was to me in a sense where it's like he's blowing people up in a
Yeah, well,
tank.
yeah.
His grappling hook is attached to a rifle and
Yes.
like it
Oh,
looks like
yes.
he's
The
shooting
sniper.
Two-Face.
Yeah.
Does he shoot
Does he shoot
and
that
or kill a
mutant?
guy when he has
The
the gun to the
I
kid?
believe you. Yeah.
Yeah. Does he kill him?
Um, It's up for debate. We
Up
don't
for
know.
debate.
They never talk about it. They specifically after that say that Batman has not killed anybody.
Mm.
So I don't know. It's
Because
interesting.
that's a thing that, because you have the whole thing in like, Justice League Unlimited, where, he just will throw away a gun. He doesn't want to
Yes.
ever hold a gun. And then in this, he's holding like an M60 and it's like, I believe
Yes.
you. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, this is a bit of a different
I
Dark
like the
Knight.
idea. I like the version of Batman that knows everything about guns, knows how to use them, knows how to
Yeah.
dismantle them, knows how to aim them and everything, but just hates them. Like he's like,
Yeah.
I know how to use a gun because like in a pinch, if I need to aim at something else, I
Hmm.
will use a gun. Because he's never gonna aim at a person. But I like the idea that Batman knows how to do that, you
That's what I
know?
really loved about when Chip Zdarsky did that story, Cheer with Jason and Urban Legends,
Yeah.
where he just finds the room of all the guns, and
Mm-hmm.
Batman's like, listen, I need to know the weapons of my enemy. I
Yeah.
just won't use them. And, Jason's like, well, okay.
In Batman the Cult,
Hmm.
it's hilarious actually. Bruce and it's Jason's Robin. Bruce is back at the manor and he's like, we need to use trank guns. Like we need to use tranquilizers to fight the bad guy in this. And he teaches Jason how to shoot guns. In that
Mm.
story, he teaches Jason. Jason's like, "Wow, I'm really good at this," and he's teaching Jason like that specifically in that story. Teaches Jason Todd how to use guns, which is crazy
Mm.
when you think about it.
Yeah. When did the
Yeah,
cult come out? 90s?
80, 88, 89, might have been
Oh, okay.
86 actually too. Before Jason died, it was in canon.
Hmm.
So yeah,
And
crazy.
people point to that being like, that's the start of Red Hood right
Yes, I
there.
will retroactively. It would be, yeah. I
Hmm.
think that's cool. But yeah. Anyway, Dark Knight Returns. You have any more questions you have written down?
Stuff. So one question I usually ask, which I don't know why I still have it in the list, because it always ends up being an obvious one, but like, who wound up being your favorite character?
Yeah, Batman.
Batman.
Even
But
though
if you
I
were to
do
pick one
love
other than Batman,
Carrie
Carrie,
Kelly. I
why?
think Carrie for me, because she's everything that Robin should be. She
Mm,
is she's like Dick Grayson in a sense where, or maybe not even necessarily Dick Grayson, but she's like excited about it. She wants to be Robin. She understands what Robin means and what it is because I guess Dick wouldn't have known that. But
hmm.
I think that she's just a really good character, and I like it. I hate the sequels to this book. Obviously, they're not great. I haven't
I've heard
read
they're not good.
Dark Knight 2 enough or reread it at least to give it a fair shot. I want to,
Hmm.
but 3 sucks. And then there's another one after that.
Golden Child, right?
Golden Child. But I do like the progression in that universe where by the time of the Golden Child, Carrie is Batman.
Mm.
And I think that's cool. I think that's neat. And I like the idea of that. And they've tried to introduce Carrie Kelly into like main canon, and I do not like
I
that. I think
forgot
that's
when that
weird.
wasn't it in the
That
new
was the new
52 or
52.
something?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't do that. I don't agree with that. I think Carrie's specifically, especially in this book, is a kid from the 80s.
Hmm.
Um, I think that this is the book where she belongs. This is the only universe where she makes sense.
Yeah.
I think Carrie would
I
probably be my
like the
second.
idea when they kind of build the seeds of like Batman Beyond in current continuity. Like I
Mm-hmm.
remember reading Task Force Z,
Oh, of
that
course.
fun book. But in that they introduce a young Blight. They introduce him as a kid,
Okay.
and like Mr. Bloom kind of like has the opportunity to kill him and goes, "I'll spare you this one time." And it's Derek Powers is the name, right? Of
Something
Blight.
like that. Yeah.
And so the idea is, I think his dad got killed or something, but like Mr. Bloom spared Derek Powers. I'm like, all
Interesting.
right, that's kind of cool, connecting it a little to the future in Batman Beyond.
I'm one of the people. This is, I guess, a hot take. I'm one of the people that I don't want Batman Beyond to be in canon. I don't believe that to
Mm,
be canon.
hmm.
Some people say who's going to replace Batman, who should be Batman's replacement. And then people say Terry, and I lose my mind because I'm like, Terry is not got nothing to do with this. He's his
I
own
like
thing.
Terry.
I like Terry too, but like in canon,
Mm,
Terry does not. I don't think belongs in the universe.
hmm.
And I know that maybe that's not fair because like Harley Quinn was introduced from the cartoon and whatnot, but I just don't. I feel like there's so much. There's so many people that would at least give the Batman toll to before I would give it to what is essentially an original character,
Yeah.
you know,
And
in
it's
their universe.
it's interesting reading this book because obviously this book came out before Harley was
Yes.
introduced. So is it implied that Bruno, the Nazi
The
lady who
Nazi one,
robs, is she with the Joker or something?
I don't. And I still to this day do not know what the deal with that character is. And also what the deal with Batman dressing up like a little
Old
grandma and
woman,
lifting
yeah.
guys over his head with one hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I I can't. I don't know. I don't see. She Bruno might have been one of the first visuals I saw from this book when I was a kid, and I was just like, "What is that
What is
about?"
this? Yeah.
The swastikas and everything. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure, so I'm pretty sure in the movie they tone it down a bit. She still has, the symbols up top, but they at least give her
yes.
full pants in the movie.
Okay. All right.
Because when I read that, I was like, okay, they definitely cut stuff from this book for the
Yeah, I
adaptations.
I it's very weird. I like, you can get into the commentary of this book where I think that kind of what Frank Miller's trying to say is that I think Batman as a character is what Frank Miller, I think, thinks
Hmm.
about Batman. Or I think Frank Miller thinks that Batman is like the force inside of people that makes them push back.
Hmm.
Where it's like that, and I think that's the point of the Sons of Batman and everything, where it's like people will listen to a strong man. People will listen
Hmm.
to someone who is theatric and can take their ear. And that's why you get the mutant leader inspiring all the mutant gang, is
Yeah.
because this guy seems like he knows what he's doing. He's strong, he's tough, he's willing to fight for it, you know? And so it seems like that's the way we should go. This guy's right,
Hmm.
And you can make a whole argument about how this book maybe talks about toxic masculinity and shit like that, and the alpha male,
Just a bit.
whatever.
He's
And
in
I
his
think that that's,
prime. I have to know if I
yes,
can beat him.
yeah, exactly. But I think that what Frank Miller is saying is that Batman is the symbol, and I don't think it's of anarchy. I think you could argue that maybe it's anarchy, but I think that Batman in this is a symbol of, like I said, the people's voice in pushing back. Where I think Frank Miller believes that the Batman inside of everyone, is what is supposed to protect us from fascism in this, right?
Hmm.
Where it's like that's our last line of defense. The Batman is the last line of defense against fascism, where people will rally up, people will believe in this figure because he can give them hope and because he can give them something to aspire to. And I think that Frank Miller is saying that Batman is that voice, and that if we keep making Batman comics, that is our fight against this kind of thing.
Hmm.
And I think that that's very interesting. I think that's a really cool thing. I think there's a point in the book where the nuke goes off later on and it EMPs the entire East Coast or whatever. And they make a point of saying that every city is chaotic except for Gotham. Bruce Wayne, Batman has riled in Gotham. He's gotten them to act together in unison as a people. You know
Hmm.
what I mean?
I knew you were gonna love that moment. As soon as you started talking
Yes.
about Batman inspiring, I'm like, you definitely love the EMP
Yes.
moment then.
When he rides in on a horse, of course I do. But because I think that moment is kind of, I think that moment is what the book is about, where
Hmm.
it's that Batman is this symbol where hard times and tragedy will lead people to become apathetic, right? Where Bruce Wayne became this person that, I've been through so much, I'm just going to quit. I'm going to give up on it. And not only is he giving up on himself, he's giving up on the Batman, but he's giving up on the world. He's saying, like, I have no place in this anymore. This has become too dark for me to be able to stop.
Hmm.
Like the world is heading towards a precipice and Batman cannot save it. And I think that that's a thing that a lot of people feel, right? Where it's like you just hear so much bad shit happens, and you become apathetic, and you're like, yeah, it doesn't matter, whatever. It's over there. I'm in my house. I'm okay.
Hmm.
You know, but as you said, the point earlier where Bruce is watching the TV, he sees Zorro, he sees something that reminds him of his darkest tragedy, and then when he tries to escape it, or you could say he's not trying to escape it, but he's trying to like
Embrace it.
wallow in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the second he tries to break out of that, he again just sees all this horrible stuff happening. He's reminding himself of the fact that the world does exist outside of his window.
Hmm.
That these things are different now, and it's because he's led himself to think that he can't do anything about it,
Yeah.
or that Batman has no voice. And so I think that is what Frank Miller is saying about this the Batman in this book, or just Batman as a character, Batman as a symbol, is that you're meant to take this character and you're meant to use him to fight. He's your power, he's your energy. Everyone has a Batman in them, and I think that as a message for this book, I think is pretty cool. I think, especially Batman's the only human really of the whole DC pantheon, at least the only kind of not really obviously, but the most important, the most popular. And you always wonder why Batman is the way he is. Like, why is he so popular, especially
Hmm.
compared to characters that on paper are way cooler? And
Yeah.
it's because he is the outlier. Like Superman and Wonder Woman and Green Lantern and the Flash, they can fight gods, they can fight Darkseid, but he can't, and yet he is still there.
Hmm.
And arguably, they listen to him.
Yeah.
So that guy, that mystery of a person, that enigma of a thing, is what is so cool about Batman. You know, and I think that that's what this book is kind of talking about, where Bruce Wayne, the Batman is a part of him. It's inside of his head. It's speaking to him, and it is important, and other people
Hmm.
need to hear about it. You know,
And this would have been pre-Zerner and all that stuff, right?
pre the split Zernar.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, way before that. Yeah,
Because kind
Zernar in oh God, what is it? Batman 123 50s. Batman
of,
goes to a planet. He meets. It's called Zernar. He
yeah.
meets a guy that's the Batman of Zernar, and then Batman on that planet gets Superman powers, and Bruce Wayne becomes a Superman of Zernar, and that's where the original Zernar story is from.
And then it was
But
Morrison who brought
the
Zernar
more,
back, right?
yes, that's 2007 or so, eight maybe. Yeah.
Because I think of that just because obviously it recently happened with Chip Zdarsky's run and everything, and how
Yes.
it's the true Batman inside of Batman type
Yes.
deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
It's
interesting
the
going back to the Dark Knight Returns is like Batman is inside of Bruce Wayne, just like
yes.
breaking free.
Yes. But I think, and I wonder, because in this book, I wouldn't even say that he really finds a balance necessarily.
Hmm.
I think Bruce Wayne still exists, obviously. It's not like one of those stories where I'm not Bruce Wayne, I'm Batman now, you
Yeah.
know? He still is Bruce Wayne. But I think that the point of the end of the book is that he's sacrificing his life, in a sense,
Yeah.
to this cause where he's like, you know what? Batman is right. I need to be Batman. Batman needs to exist. Batman needs to be the symbol. And it's not just mine.
Hmm.
Like I created the Batman, or maybe the Batman created me, whatever avenue you want to go on that. But it's not just mine anymore. This belongs to Gotham. This belongs to people, and they will take it and they will do something with it that I could never have imagined. And that's
Hmm.
part of like his not wanting to do this alone kind of gig, where you can argue that Batman's the key loner, and he's the loner in comics, where he's like, I don't work well with teams, but he exclusively works well with teams.
Yeah.
He exclusively works well with others. He's got like 15 kids, and so this is kind of an expansion on that, where the sons of Batman are inspired by him to do
Yeah.
this thing, and it's because he allows other people into the what is it called, the mission. He allows them to do it with him.
Well, and that's why when you bring up, Carrie would be your favorite character in the book, aside
Yeah.
from Batman. I really loved the introduction of Carrie to Bruce and Batman, where he's down the ground and he keeps thinking
Yes.
about Dick. And
Yeah.
like, he references in the Batmobile being like, the Batmobile, that's what you called it.
Yeah, that's what you
Now I
called
have
it.
an
Yeah.
empty chair behind me. And like he wants Dick to be there, and then Carrie jumps in and he's out of it too. So he's like, Dick,
Yeah.
are you here?
And it's interesting that Carrie has idolized this idea of this person she's never known. She's idolized the Batman. That's why she becomes Robin. And
Hmm.
at her first point meeting him, he's this broken old man.
Yeah.
And it's like she exists there to remind him of what the Batman really represents.
Hmm.
Cool.
Yeah, no, that was one of my other favorite moments of the book. So we talked about mine. What would you consider your favorite, if you had to pick one, your favorite moment or piece of
Oh
dialogue from
man.
this book?
Piece of dialogue is an interesting one. I love the line. This might be my favorite moment. The Joker issue.
Mm.
But my favorite line from that is, I'm gonna find it, but it's something along the lines of, it's when Joker is taking over the is it a it's a it's a boardwalk, right? With like a bunch of
Yeah, yeah,
rides or
it's
something.
like
Yeah,
a carnival. It's like a
carnival,
Coney
yeah.
Island type thing.
And Bruce drops in with Carrie. He says something along the lines of, here it is. Uh, from the beginning, I knew that there's nothing wrong with you that I couldn't fix with my hands. It's like, oh man, like, you know what I mean? I think that is a fantastic, I think that is my favorite line in the book. But the whole fight between the Joker and the Batman, like it's supposed to, be the last Batman Joker fight. And I think that this lends credence to the idea that he didn't kill that guy earlier, is that he can't still bring himself to kill the Joker
The Joker has
even
to
at this
kill
point.
himself by breaking
Yes,
his own neck.
yeah, which is metal as fuck, by the way. And it's cool. But I think that the Batman in this, he wants to be able to push that far. He wants to be able to go that far. He knows that hypothetically it would make things easier. But he
Yeah, because
also
there's that
knows,
moment with the mutant leader where he's in the tank and
yes,
he goes, I could just pull the trigger and blow him
yeah,
away, and we won't have to
exactly.
worry about him ever again.
But it's not about that for him. Like you could argue it's maybe the rush of the fight, but I think a lot of it is like that he has to be this symbol. He has to mean something more. He has to stand up for something more, and he can't do that if he's going to kill people.
Hmm.
And I think that this is probably the closest version of Batman to killing people that exists, right? Where like if you want your dark and your grim and your edgy Batman and you want to pretend that he kills people in this book, you probably can.
Hmm.
But if you're Zack Snyder, but
Well,
he
yeah, he
doesn't
took a
kill people.
crate and I saw him, crack that guy's skull on a
Yes,
wall.
oh yeah,
And in the rated R
but it
version, he
looks
has
cool, doesn't it?
blood
But it looks
going down.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does look kind of cool, I will admit.
It was a
But
good fight scene in
yeah,
the
it is a good.
extended cut.
Makes me upset. It makes me mad that that's the best Batman movie fight. Still makes me mad, but
Even
whatever.
better than Bane in a Bale.
Yes, yeah, come
Yeah.
on.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
You just love when he explodes the. Doesn't he blow up the flamethrower and basically blow that guy up? I don't
Yes, well,
remember how
that's
that
that's
goes.
that's from this book. Yeah, that's the scene from
Yeah.
this book. When he kills that guy, when he kills KG Beast. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, but I think that the Joker fight in this is Batman basically fighting, because the Joker is such an interesting version of the Joker in this book.
Yeah.
He's crazy,
Well, I
and that's
love how he has been comatose ever since
since
Batman basically
Batman retired.
retired. And then
Yes,
it was a great ending to the first animated movie where like you just hear all the
darling. Yeah,
yeah, Batman reports and yeah, he comes too. I didn't expect it to happen so early in this book. I
yes,
thought it would be more of a cliffhanger, but it does
yeah,
it happens pretty much as soon as Batman returns and
yeah,
then he
which makes
kind of
sense.
starts plotting.
Yeah, I
But
already talked about.
I remember that would always be a chilling moment at the end of that animated movie where he's just like, Batman, darling. And it's
Yeah,
just like, oh shit.
yeah. Uh-oh. But that's the consequences of doing this again. But I think like the whole scene where Joker like kills everyone on Letterman or whatever, you
Hmm.
know, and he rides away on a flying doll. That's ridiculous. Still cool, but it is ridiculous. But the
Do you like that I guess kind of inspired the 2019 Joker ending? Because that's what
yeah,
when they did that in the movie, I went, all
yeah,
right, interesting.
I guess I never put those two together. But yeah, that is interesting. God. Yeah, that does happen. This is
Yep.
weird.
Hmm.
He doesn't in the movie doesn't kill a crowd, but in the
Yeah.
movie he also
Well,
doesn't have a venom spouting or poison gas spouting
yeah.
robot. So
Hmm.
I guess he would. Um, but the funhouse mirror kind of scenes where Batman is chasing him through, is that part where the kid's like, kick his ass, Batman, and Batman's like, watch your mouth, kid. Like that's he's still got to be a symbol. He's still got to stay. He's still got to be a good guy. Language, son, is what he says.
Hmm.
Um, and when he's chasing Joker through, and then the carnival, the festival of love, or whatever the whatever the ride is that they end up on, the tunnel of love,
Hmm.
and they're going through it and they're fighting, and it's like the most brutal Batman Joker fight. Batman picks out one of his eyes, Joker stabs him in the chest, and then he
Well,
does crack his neck.
yeah, I
And
always remembered that from the animation because, Joker's like, "Have you lost your mind?"
yeah,
And then you have Batman being like, "I've heard it all before. I'm not holding back tonight. Like, I don't
yes,
care."
yeah, and he's trying to convince himself again to he's trying to kind of hype himself up to kill Joker. Where he's
Yeah.
like, you know what? I heard it all before. Joker's gone crazy. Like for this time, he's really gone crazy. I thought it was dealt with. I'm gonna kill him. I'm gonna run to him and just kill him. It's kind
Hmm.
of like it's like Daredevil in season 3 of the show, where he's just like, I'm just gonna find Fisk, I'm just gonna crack his neck. But when he
Well, it was
gets to the
crazy,
moment,
when, Batman cried out and then did the whole speech about how he beat
Yes,
Joker.
I
It was
beat you. Yeah, yeah. And
kind of
Joker's
nuts.
like not even. Yeah, yeah. But because I think at that moment between them, that being the end of their thing, I still really don't know how to define the Batman Joker thing that they have together because it's not
Hmm.
even necessarily a rivalry. It's a thing that they share, you know.
It's a
Um,
it's a relationship that can't be
it's
quantified. Is the
yeah,
best way I think I could
it's a
put it.
connection. They both
Yeah.
have a connection. I think that I don't think it's as one-sided as people say. I think that Batman is mystified by the Joker.
Hmm.
Batman's always like, I don't care about the Joker. Joker's just another goon in my, in my arsenal or whatever, in my rivals. But I think that Batman is very, very interested and very confused by the Joker. But I also think that there's part of him that's like, not that he likes him, but there's part of Batman I feel that gives the Joker a pass because he feels like they share something. I don't know what that
Mm.
is. I don't know what that thing is, but I think it is part of the reason he will never kill him is because I think that he knows that regardless of if he's a hero or not, the Joker existing means that Batman's not so alone. Does that make sense?
Kinda,
I
because yeah,
I think that that's part of their relationship.
it makes more sense when Batman's like the loner to me, where he's on his
Yes.
own because the Joker's kind of on his own in his own way.
Yeah.
Because, the whole origin of the Joker, if you're going off the
No
killing
joke.
joke and all that, is, he lost his family same way that Batman did.
Yes. One
Of
bad day.
course,
The
of
whole
course,
kind of
now we've gotten three Jokers where apparently the
yes.
deaths were
Family's
faked
alive.
and this and
Yeah.
that. But, I can understand that, especially if Batman does know the secret behind the Joker's, origin, as
Yeah.
three Jokers also gave us with, I've known the Joker's name since like day one,
Yeah. Exactly.
but so I could see that like connection, but I go back to the Killing Joke, where you have that moment at the end where
At
they
the
do
end. Yeah.
share the conversation. Batman goes, "I could work with you. We could work to rehabilitate you."
Yeah.
And the Joker's like,
It's too
"Nah, it's
far.
too late for
But
me."
I also think of the actual joke at the end and how the book ends with them laughing together
Hmm.
as kind of Batman understanding the deal that they have. Batman
Yeah.
going, "Oh, okay, I see. We maybe aren't so different." And
Hmm.
obviously they are. Like I
Yeah.
hate when the argument is that they're the same. They're not the same
No.
at all. Batman's a good guy. I hate the argument that Batman's not a good guy. He's a goddamn good guy. He's a real good guy. Actually, he saves a lot of people. And so the whole anti-hero Batman argument is not one I like. But the Joker and him, I think, have this weird connection that I don't think that Batman even necessarily like
Understands.
yes or knowingly gives into, you
Hmm.
know?
Well,
And I
and
think
that
that's
was the whole thing with Death of the Family. I know
mhm.
that was Scott Snyder's whole intent
Oh yeah,
behind
yeah.
it, where, Joker trying to tell Batman, you would rather it just be us again. You like the
Yes.
family makes you weaker.
Yeah, exactly. I love you've read Batman Endgame, the end of the Snyder run.
No, I haven't finished the new
The
52 run. The
the
farthest I think I got up to, I think I finished Death of the Family, which I read the
good
whole crossover, all 40 issues.
Jesus Christ, man.
And well, something I found really interesting by reading the whole thing is everybody would, if push came to shove, it seemed like everybody would kill the Joker except Tim Drake. Tim Drake,
Interesting.
in everybody's crossover of it, everybody contemplates killing the Joker and thinking about it, except for Tim Drake. But in his
Mm,
version, he admits to being thankful that somebody like Jason would rid the
would
world
do it.
of
Yeah,
Joker, but he
interesting.
said he wouldn't do it, which I found interesting about that book.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do have to finish the new 52 with Endgame because I know, you know, how the Justice League kind of gets
Yeah.
Jokerized and that
The
whole.
premise of Endgame is after death of the family, Joker realizes he's like, "Oh, Batman isn't like in the new 52 it's like Batman doesn't regard me. Batman doesn't have this connection with me. He doesn't think that we're like peas in a pod. This has
Mm,
been a one-sided relationship this whole time, so fuck it, we're breaking up." And the whole point of that story
mm,
is the Joker like breaking up with Batman, as in, I'm not holding back, I actually want to kill you this time, we're done. And I think
mm,
that that's the really interesting take on their relationship as well. We have a
mm,
Joker who's like, you know what? I'm done pretending that this guy's my friend or my muse or anything like that. I want him dead. I'm gonna kill him.
Hmm.
You know, and
Yeah,
that's the
there's a lot of
premise.
interesting Batman stories I have to catch up on, which
Oh,
part of
there's
the
a
reason we're
million
doing
of
the
them, man.
show is to
Yep.
get through them.
Yes.
Like another one that I do really want to read that I haven't read before is The War of Jokes and Riddles. Oh, okay. You're not the
It's an
biggest
interesting.
fan. I like the
Wow.
idea of it.
Well, yes, everyone does.
Hmm.
Everyone. I remember
Who's coming out?
when Tom King's Drum was coming out, yeah, and then the solicits were for the War of Jokes and Riddles, and I just went, "Oh yeah, yeah, that's cool." But I'll say it's not what you're gonna expect it
Okay.
to be. It's a Tom King Batman comic book. It's
Hmm.
not what you think it's gonna be. It's it, better on a reread,
Hmm.
better on a few rereads. So disappointing when I read it,
Ah, okay.
but it's not bad. I don't think the whole Tom King run in general was that bad.
Hmm.
So I guess I'm a defender in that way.
Okay. Well, getting back to
Yeah.
Dark Knight Returns, how do you feel about how the book relates to today a bit?
It's weird, right? It feels very it feels very what's the word? Topical still. It's not aged very
Things
poorly.
that got to me reading it was like how wimpy the mayor is, where they
Uh-huh.
have like the repeat moments and panels where it's like, I'm still deliberating. I'll get back to
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
And then, the mayors always have like even his replacement mayor after the first mayor gets killed, they got like the fat necks and they're just like, I
Yes,
don't
yeah.
know. I'm just gonna defer to this.
Yeah.
And it was interesting reading the panels of where they ask Reagan, what's your position on the Batman? And he's like, I'm gonna leave that to the governor. And then the governor's like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave that to the mayor. And then you have the mayor,
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave that to the commissioner. I'm just like, all right,
Yeah.
this feels a little familiar. Nobody wanted to take responsibility. Okay.
But I think that part of this is that Batman is a symptom of like a failed society in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
You're not supposed to have Batman. You're not supposed to rely on Batman. In a perfect world, Batman would not exist. His
Yeah.
parents wouldn't have been killed. He wouldn't be like this. In a perfect world, Batman would not exist. So I think Batman existing in general is kind of an affront to the status quo in a sense where it's like we want to pretend everything's okay. I think that's part of what Reagan does in this book, why he sends Superman in. He's like, we want to pretend that everything's okay. We want to pretend that everyone's happy. And Batman existing means that people are not. If Batman
Mm.
exists, if Batman's out there, clearly people are not happy. People need this guy. People look up to this guy, and they shouldn't
Mm-hmm.
because that means that we're not doing our job, you
Mm.
know? And I think that that's kind of the whole I think that's why Reagan is in this book.
I was gonna ask, would maybe weird question, but would you have rathered it do like, something like the
Brando
MCU or
president,
somebody would do? Yeah, it's just like a
Thaddeus
president.
Ross. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, 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 no. I don't like that comic. I have a real big issue with that ever since Trump became president in 2016. Marvel Comics does not do the president anymore. That really bothers me. It used to be that
Mm.
every president was the president in comics, and ever since that,
Well,
they're
that was
not
a big
anymore.
thing, right? It was Trump was the first president that Captain America never interacted with in
That might be
comics.
it, yeah.
And I
Because
don't
I
think he
guess
interacted with Biden either.
no, he didn't
I think
exactly.
it ended with 2016. I think
That's
that
exact.
trend.
I gotta, man. I don't like that. I like the world outside our window, and I guess if you had to justify it, you would have to write a Captain America. If Trump became president in the Marvel universe, there would have to be a Captain America story about it
Hmm.
where he fights it. But you
Yeah.
can't do that because he's
Hmm.
actually really the real life president. So I guess I get it. But at the same
Optics.
time, yeah, exactly. But at the same time, I think that these things do have the kind of, I think that that's kind of the point of why they became so popular at a point when like Marvel started up, the Fantastic Four and all that, world outside your window nonsense that Stan Lee loved was
Hmm.
because we have like a social responsibility to our readers, and so I think that that's influenced this kind of thing where it's like it could have been random the president, but I
Hmm.
think that it being Reagan, it being so distinctly the 80s and like this is America, that it being like that makes the themes kind of more solid. You have like a lot more of a solid ground to stand on because you know this world, or at least reading this, you did. You know, it's recognizable. It's not, you know, if DC is kind of this fantasy world in the first place, it's hard to ground it in general. But if you take Batman, who is probably their most grounded character, and you put him in the real world as this seeks to do, then you're not going to have that issue of it feeling like it's too far fetched. You
Hmm.
know, I feel like everything in this world specifically feels really grounded and believable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that that's part of the reason that they put Reagan in the book.
Yeah, I will say I love the recent interview you guys did on Hero Story with Mark Wade,
Mm.
because you with like the professional journalism question at the end, asking him about
Yeah,
like,
like why did he do that?
yeah, his statement of like how he couldn't really relate to the world post this past
Mm.
election.
Yeah.
It was really fascinating to hear his, basically what you said, talking
Yes.
about like
I thought that was very interesting
writing
too.
the world outside the window. It's kind of hard for me to do that right now.
Yeah, like the stakes don't feel as real anymore. And I really, it put a different perspective on it for me
Hmm.
because there's a lot of writers today, at least some maybe, who their whole thing is the commentary. You know, it's not
Tom Taylor.
really Tom Taylor, Tom King,
Hmm.
Dennis Camp, that kind of thing, where it's like it's all about the commentary. We're only talking about the world outside, and we're using superheroes as a prism in which to do it. You know,
Hmm.
and I think that that's important to have in the genre, in the medium, because like we all live every day. You know, like we wake up, we go to work, we do our thing, and the world exists outside of us. You know, and so I think and obviously fiction can be an escape, but this particular form of fiction was never meant to completely take you away from the real world, at least not in its modern form. You know, Superman's not realistic, and he wasn't when he existed, but he fought real things. He fought
Hmm.
against, you
Social
know,
injustice.
social injustice. He was called the champion of the oppressed. You know,
Hmm.
like the whole point of the character was that he's there to save you, the reader, you know? And so I think that you can't take that stuff out of this medium. I think that then it's just nothing. Then it's
Hmm.
just not talking about anything at all, you
Yeah.
know? And if these characters are supposed to exist right now, we exist right now and we are influenced by the world around us, you know? Like,
Yeah.
and I think, yeah, like this book in particular, I think a lot of the political commentary on it is forgotten
Hmm.
in subsequent, like people talking about it, you know, like it just becomes about the version of Batman or the characterization of yada yada
How he's so
and
cool. How he
the
breaks
Batman fight and the
arms. He,
symbol's so big and whatnot.
yeah.
Yeah. Which it does look cool. I do like the big fat bat symbol.
Hmm.
But I think that the commentary of this and Frank Miller kind of saying that Batman is our fight, you know, is really cool. Have you read the newest? I thought this was really good. The newest issue of Absolute Superman.
No, I'm behind on everything, dude.
There's a point.
I'm trying to finish Invincible, and then my next goal is to finally get through that list that you put together of everything between Avengers Disassembled
Oh,
and
geez, man. All
Secret
right, yeah,
Wars.
yeah,
I want to do that before Doomsday,
good one. Yeah.
but that's a long read. So
Yes.
I'm behind on everything. I haven't read DC books since I left the paper. So I haven't read Night Terrors. I haven't
Well,
read
no, I read
Absolute
Night Towers.
Power. I
Good
haven't.
one.
I'm behind.
In the newest issue of Absolute Superman, there's a part where like this the version of Lois is interviewing people around the world because
Hmm.
Superman in this is kind of a ghost. You know, he's like helping people. He's like kind of early Man of Steel Superman.
I've seen
And
things about it. I like the idea of his logo being the symbol of
yes,
like Krypton's working class.
working class. Yeah,
Stuff
but the
sounds really cool. And then I see an army of peacemakers and I go,
hell
all
yeah,
right.
yeah. Well, yeah. But the point is that there's a in the newest issue the thesis that Jason Aaron comes up with, the characters all say that we pray for the rage of the Superman. That like
Mm.
his anger about how things are is what protects us. And
Hmm.
I think that that's really interesting. I think that that applies to this in general. You know, like in this, I think people in this book are praying for, and they don't necessarily do it on their hands and knees, but they're praying for the Batman and his rage and his anger. You know, they're
Hmm.
praying for this thing that can protect them. And I guess that's kind of a tragic element to Batman in general is that he and this is Tom King's whole run, but like that he can't
Hmm.
exist without this rage and this anger. That he
Well, I
can't
thought the whole
exist
point of
if
Tom
he's
King's
not.
run is that Batman's destined to be with Catwoman. That's what I thought the
You
whole
would think. You would
premise
think.
was.
You
I
if you
mean, there
read
was
up
a
to
whole
issue.
Batman Catwoman
Yeah,
12 issue after that. So
yeah, I
that's
did
what I
read
thought
that.
the message was.
Did read that. Yeah. Oh
Did you
God.
like that Superman was like the man of honor, or what is
Yeah, I
it,
did
best
like.
man
Yeah, that was cool.
in
Yeah,
Vegas?
I'm cool with that. I guess. I don't
I
know.
think that book is better read as part of a trade. I think week issue
Yeah, no,
month
I
to
have the
month it was
hardcover.
kind of, but when you read it all together, the
Yeah.
jumping around Catch 22 style works a lot better
Yes.
for me.
Yeah. That's very. That book takes a lot from. Well, Tom King's whole run obviously takes a lot from Mask of the Phantasm,
Hmm.
and in that book, they introduce the Phantasm into comics.
Yeah.
So, but the point of the Mask of the Phantasm is that Bruce is for the first time running into this thing where he's like, I'm happy now. I don't have to be Batman. I thought that Batman would fulfill me forever, but I've learned that it was just me being really mad and lonely. And when I
Mm.
wasn't anymore, I didn't want to be Batman. And there's the
Hmm.
scene where he goes. Have you seen Mask of the Phantasm?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Phenomenal
There's the
movie.
scene.
Still holds up.
Yeah, no, I bought the 4K a couple weeks ago. It's awesome. Um,
Could you imagine it? What it's got to have, what was it, 1992,
Something
right?
like that. Yeah.
Ah, no, the anniversary would have been a few years ago then. Because imagine that
Mm.
coming back to theaters. I love when
Oh
they do
man.
anniversary showings.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, but there's the scene where Bruce goes to his parents' grave and he says like, "I'm
He's
sorry."
begging. Yeah.
Yeah, he's begging for their forgiveness because he learned that he doesn't want to do this anymore. He's learned he's not built for it, I guess. And I
Oh,
love that.
such a good movie.
Yeah,
Because yeah, then when she leaves him, you get
yeah.
the music and
And he
everything of
puts
him
on the
putting on the
mask, and then
cowl.
Alfred reacts. He's scared. Oh
Yeah,
my god.
so good.
I think a lot of this book influences that kind of thing.
Hmm.
And obviously, it's hard to remove this from the Batman character today because this is kind of not necessarily a template, but this is what Batman is.
Hmm.
Like Batman is dark and gritty and talks about all this stuff now kind of because of this. Um and I think that it's like with the political commentary and all of it is kind of lost in subsequent talkings about. I think that Batman as a character still tries to say important things like that. Like I think
Hmm.
Zdarsky's run just ended, and Zdarsky's run ends with a Batman giving a big speech about how the people are stronger than the
And didn't
media
he
and stuff like
fight
that.
some like patriotic
It was
villain
yeah,
or
it
whatever?
was KG Beast in disguise, turns out.
Oh,
But yeah,
really?
yeah, and but it's that kind of thing where it's like Batman's trying to talk about all these problems, all these social things, but I don't think that they know what to do with the character right now in
Hmm.
comics. That's why they're doing Hush too. You know, Hatoosh.
Were you
Yeah.
at that panel at
No,
Comic-Con?
I was not. No, I
I
was
was at
not.
that panel. It was interesting.
I would have
I
lost it. I would have been so
I have
confused
I have a poster over there
of
uh
Hatoosh.
of Hattush
Hell yeah.
because at the panel they did the whole thing where they go, if you reach under your seats, there might be a wristband. So I have a signed poster for Hattush
Wow.
by Jim Lee, what is it?
Jeff
Uh
Jeff Loeb,
Jeff Loeb, I
Alex
think
Sinclair.
Alex Sinclair and
Yeah.
Scott Williams, or I forget
Yeah.
who the other one is. But
Colors.
yeah, so I have my signed Hattush poster
Awesome.
from
Wow.
Comic-Con. But yeah, it was interesting hearing them talk about it. But yeah, it does feel like nostalgia play of what
He's
do we do
kind of, well, I
next?
think the character is kind of spinning its wheels. I don't really know what you do next with Batman. I think because Alfred's dead, Alfred's been dead for coming up on 6 years now at
Yeah.
this point, which is, an age in comic
And
books.
it's wild that they've stuck to it.
Yeah, and I
I mean,
like
they
it. And
brought
there's
him back
been,
for like a hot minute in Batman versus Robin, but
yes, but the point of that was for him to move on from
yeah.
Alfred. Like, there's plenty of stories. There's like at least 5 stories since then where Batman's like, I miss Alfred. And then they go, actually, Bruce, you're strong still. You don't need Alfred. And he goes, all right.
Hmm.
And there's been like 5 of those since, which tells me that they're at least pretty serious about this Alfred thing. He will
Hmm.
come back. We're not dumb. Whether it's in another 5 years or in another 20 somehow or next week,
Well,
he will
hold
come
on.
back.
Is there a Batman character that was super important to him that died and just hasn't come back since? I mean, Jason
ever.
Todd took a long time to come back. It was about,
Jason Todd
what was
arguably
it,
was a bad
15
idea to bring
years?
back.
I mean, I like
No,
him.
it's yeah, it was like 15 or 16 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, besides his parents,
Yeah.
which you could argue they
They
have come back
kind of
in certain
have because
forms.
of
Yeah,
Absolute Batman. Mom's still
and and
alive.
and Flashpoint as
Yeah.
well. I don't think so. I mean, there's
Yeah,
characters that have
Flashpoint
been
Batman. That was a
forgotten.
whole thing of Tom King's
There,
run too.
yes,
Yeah.
there was. Oh, yes, I kind of like it. But there's there's characters that have certainly been forgotten. Like,
Mhm.
have you read Hush? Hush number one.
No, I got to read the original. Again,
There's
there's a lot
a
of classic
okay.
stories I haven't read
There's a
because I got
classic.
into reading comics late. I
Mhm.
got into it probably when I was in high school.
Wow.
Not
Yeah.
now because there was no local comic shop near me.
Hmm.
And to get to one, like I would have had to go to one of the ones in the mall. And when you're a kid, if your
It's
parents don't take
intimidating.
you,
Yeah.
you're not getting there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
So I
Yeah. I
really when I started reading comics was you know regularly was more in high school when like the apps were out and everything. Middle school I would buy stuff on like Google Play. Like I was buying
hmm
like issues and stuff. Like that's when I read Infinity Gauntlet. Like I was reading
Yep. I love
self-contained
Infinity Gauntlet, man.
stories. Oh, that's a great book.
That is awesome. Yeah. God.
Part of me was like a little worried about Infinity War because I'm like, how can you tell this story without Adam Warlock? What are you gonna
Turns out
do?
pretty easily. Yeah.
Yeah.
Turns out it may be better.
Yeah. I'd
Yeah.
give it that.
Yeah. Yeah. I would have been reading comics. I was trying to think about this yesterday, actually. I remember the first comic book. I think this was the first comic book that I ever bought.
Hmm.
Was it's an Bendis issue of New Avengers, and on the cover, it's Wolverine, Spider-Man, Ms. Marvel, The Thing, Luke Cage, and Brother Voodoo.
Oh,
And
so
it
that's one of the
says,
later New Avengers
yeah,
runs,
yeah,
right?
it's like
Post Civil
heroic
War.
age. Yeah.
Hmm.
And on the cover it says, in this book, one of these characters will die. And I was like, holy shit, are they gonna
It's
kill
the end of the
Spider-Man?
world.
They're gonna kill Spider-Man, or they're gonna kill Wolverine, or they're gonna kill the thing. It was Brother Voodoo. And that's how they got me in. I guess that's how they got people into reading that. And then from there, I mean, Ultimate Spider-Man. I was reading Miles Morales when he debuted. I was on
Do
that
you have the
stuff.
first appearance?
No, I was that was digital. I was
Uh,
reading them digitally at that point.
okay.
But yeah, I was. I mean, from then, that's like 10 years old. Have not really stopped
I can
since.
looking at my Google Play, I can tell you what were the first books
Here we
I
go.
bought and read. You ready for this?
Yeah,
It was Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe.
of course. Not yeah, no surprise there.
It was
I
the
would have. I
Infinity
think I own that
Gauntlet,
too. Yeah, good one.
Harley Quinn and Power Girl,
Okay, that's an interesting one.
because I really like the Amanda Connor, Jimmy
Oh yeah,
Palmiotti
no, yeah,
stuff.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And Harley's Little Black Book because around the time I got into it,
Amanda
I was
Connor.
watch I was watching DC All Access and they were talking
Oh,
about like
that
all
show.
the
YouTube, right?
different covers like they were talking about this whole initiative for that book.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's
yeah.
how I kind of started reading things week to week, waiting for like the
Interesting.
next issue of that come out because I also found it cool that she was teaming up with other people from the
Yes,
DC
I have.
universe
I
like
think I
Green
have read that
Lantern.
book. Yeah,
Yeah,
New
it's fun.
52.
I like
Yeah,
how
I
funny those books are. Like she literally fights
yeah,
Popeye in her solo run.
yes. Have you when did you get you got Marvel Unlimited, right?
Yeah.
When did you get it?
When did I get it?
Yeah,
I think early college. I think early college. I think 2019.
interesting. I got fucking Marvel Unlimited like 2015 or something like that.
Wow.
2016. I got it earlier than I think people knew it existed.
I didn't realize it was around
Yeah.
until I got DC Universe, which launched in
Yeah,
2018.
I remember living in living in a world where there was no DC universe, but like, I just remember living like, man, DC needs one of these because I had read like when I was, let's say, you have you could buy you could buy trade paperbacks. This was
Mhm.
$20, right? And this would have been 2014, 15.
Yeah, some of the
And
first trades I have are on the shelf. Like
yeah,
I would get the 75th anniversary books. I
mm,
have the Harley Quinn run, New 52. And then I have like some Daredevil trades.
yeah,
I have a weird mix of trades, to be honest
yeah.
with
No,
you.
I have a lot of weird trades too because of how I used to buy them when I was younger. But you know you could go and you can buy the books, or actually, let me rephrase that. You can ask your parents to buy them for you, and maybe they will. They'll spend $20 for one book, right?
Hmm.
Or much better trade, and this became the much better deal for me to ask my dad is like, however much it was, like $7 a month, I get to read like 100,000 comics,
Yeah.
right?
That's
So
what I
when I
love
was
about the apps. You can
yeah,
just
so when I
continue.
was 15 and that became open to me, I was like, well, nothing's gonna stop me now. So I'm just gonna read it all. So I remember like that was when I sat down, I read all of Ultimate Spider-Man. That was like 2 weeks or something. And
Hmm.
then I read the Hickman Avengers stuff. And then I read the Bendis
Listen, I'm
stuff.
going in
Yeah.
timeline order. So once I hit the Civil War period, I was like, I'll get back to it."
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. Do you hit Civil War, you're saying? You
Yeah,
got there
so I'm
already?
like in the middle of the Civil War period and I'm reading them issue to issue. So I'm reading Runaways and Young
You don't have to
Avengers.
read it all, man. You
I'm
could
reading
just
it
read
all. I got
Avengers,
OCD. I have
Spider-Man
to do
and
it.
stuff too.
I'm not doing
Jeez.
Spider-Man. I'm mainly
So
just
wait,
doing the
so what's
Avengers
up with
books.
Runaways?
Well, because
Just
it
for
ties into
fun.
Young Avengers.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I guess it
That's
works.
that's
Yeah.
why I'm reading it. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
and you'll get to Young Avengers. Yeah. So you're about a
I'm
quarter of
70
the way through
issues
that,
in out
right?
of like 700 issues from the list I
Damn.
have.
Jesus. I just knew to read. I read it in reverse. I'd read the Hickman stuff, I think, before I read the Bendis stuff. Maybe that's not true, actually.
Hmm.
I think I read the Hickman stuff in like 2016 because I read Secret Wars when it came out,
Yeah.
like
I don't want
issue
to
by
read
issue.
it by itself. I want to read it
Yes,
after all the buildup because I've
I
never
had
read it
see,
before.
but that's the thing is I had read Secret Wars when it was coming out before I really knew what the deal was. Like I had been
Hmm.
reading comics at that point monthly, and they were
Yeah,
all
didn't you get
building
into it because of
up to.
Time Runs? Not Time. Is
Well,
Time Runs
I
out DC or Marvel?
that was Marvel. I got into it, yeah, but I hadn't been reading Time Runs Out. I just remember going to the comic book store and seeing on every Avengers cover a countdown by
Yeah.
month. It'd say in 3 months, yada yada, in 2 months, yada yada. And I was like, what is this? Like, what is this? Why do I not know about this? So I would like Google what's happening. And then Secret Wars was the big thing they revealed. And so I was like, all right, I'll read this. And
Hmm.
I think it is amazing without all the context still. But now having gone back and reading all the context and Fantastic Four and all that yacht and all that
Yeah, I
nonsense,
wouldn't want to read it without reading Hickman's Fantastic Four stuff.
yeah, it's crazy.
I don't want to touch the one that you and Harper joke about now because of Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom. I don't want to touch infamous Iron Man
Iron
until I
Man,
read
oh
Secret Wars. I want to I
yeah,
want to do everything in order.
yes, yep, yeah, well, it's the way to do it. It is the
Hmm.
way to do it. Marvel needs to get better with their trades and like the way they do physical books. I feel,
Yeah,
but
because everything's a 5 issue, which I like how Mark Waid even brought that up in your interview.
yeah,
Is like everything's a 5 issue, and it's like, all right,
yeah, because like I don't know why Marvel's not doing compendiums,
yeah,
especially like Ultimate Spider-Man could be 3 compendiums and people would buy the fuck out of that, you
hmm.
know? Their omnibuses are good, but I don't think anybody wants to read an omnibus.
Well, the
Like
one thing I
they're
just
so
got,
chunky
which
and they're
I think
heavy
you
and
have it on
whatnot.
the shelf, I did get the Marvel DC crossover compendium because I'm like, it's the only way I can read these books. I have to get
Yep.
it.
Yep. Yeah, yeah, I have the poster somewhere.
Oh, the Jim Lee
Yeah.
one?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I
But
got
yeah,
the regular cover, which I think is what you have there.
yes.
Maybe one day I'll buy the amalgam
Yeah, I think I gotta buy
compendium.
the amalgam ones. But yeah.
I have
Yeah.
some of the original amalgam issues because I found them in a back issue bin. So I have some of
Jesus.
those. I have like the Captain America, Superman, Super
Super
Soldier.
soldier, yeah.
Yeah, I got that. But any closing thoughts on The Dark Knight Returns?
You just gotta read it. I think it's one of those books you just gotta read it. You're gonna look up a list and you're gonna go, what are the best comic books to read? And it's gonna say Watchmen. It's gonna say like Mouse. It's gonna say The Dark Knight Returns. And you gotta read The Dark Knight Returns. You just gotta do it, even if to you it's just eating your vegetables. I promise you, you will like the vegetables. It's just you got to do it. You know what I mean? I feel like if you're a comic book fan, you just have to.
Hmm.
You know, at some point, you don't got to read it right now, but at some point, read The Dark Knight Returns.
It's a must read.
It is a must
If
read.
you're
I
gonna be a
feel
comic fan, it's a must read. You
if you're
gotta
gonna be a
have it.
if you're gonna be a Batman fan, especially too. Like, there's a lot of people that are just Batman fans. If you're gonna
Hmm.
be a Batman fan, this should be the top of your list.
Hmm.
You
Well,
know?
yeah, because BVS.
because of Batman v Superman. Yeah, because I feel this way about reading comic books, where I think a lot of people have I it was easy for me, or at least easy for me now, very easy for me now to understand these things because I got into it so young. And I
Hmm.
got into it before the movies really blew it up. And I'm not that much older for that to have been a very long period of time. So
Yeah.
if I was reading from 2010 on, that's 2 years before the Avengers, which
Yeah.
is not a whole lot of time. And in that time, I had already read a lot of stuff, but
And you knew of the characters.
I knew of the characters and I had read stories of the characters and whatnot. But I was not, as well versed, let's say, as I am today. But for a lot of people, if you don't start at that age that I started at, you feel lost in doing it. It's hard to follow. It's hard to know. It's a very, and I think that this is part of the reason it's so difficult for so many people is it's just a very insular hobby. It's a hobby. It's reading in itself is a singular thing. You sit alone with one thing and you alone read it and enjoy it, right? But I think for a lot of people, that doesn't necessarily appeal to how they want to enjoy things. You want to enjoy things with other people, you want to enjoy them with groups. And I also think that because of internet culture, we have degraded the stories into just like um,
Moments.
moments. Yes, exactly. And so people think it's good enough to just know the moment or just know the feat or just know the gist. But like you have to, if you're going to call yourself a fan of these things, I don't think this is me being gatekeepy. If you're going to call yourself a fan of these things, or if you really want to be a fan of these things, you have to sit by yourself and read it by yourself. You
Yeah.
can't watch a YouTube video on it. You can't look at the Wikipedia. You can't have a TikTok tell you about what Franklin Richards did or something like that. If you want to know what Franklin Richards did, you got to find the issue where he did it and read it yourself. You
Hmm.
know, and that's my mindset going into comics, and I think that is why it's so difficult for a lot of people because I just think that the effort you have to put in to do that is sometimes really not worth the story you get back out of it. You
Hmm.
know, because it is difficult and it's expensive. It's very expensive
Yes.
today. And I think that I
Oh
can
my God, the
understand that.
50-page issues for Dark Knight
Yes.
Returns.
Yeah.
Cover price was like $2.
Yeah. Now this whole thing is $20,
Yeah.
Um oh man, that's crazy. Yeah. Today that would have been like $7 an issue. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um but I think it's expensive, it's difficult, it's hard to track down. But I think once you get into it, if you're gonna find the copy, if you're gonna find the book, whatever you're looking to read, you just have to do it and you just have to sit and do it by yourself. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I think that that's what people need to remember about comics. It's not about who gives a shit what everyone else is telling you or the popular opinion on it or like, the gist or the cultural zeitgeist idea of what this thing is. If you want to know what it is, then you need to seek it out and read it by yourself. You
Hmm.
know, that's my opinion on reading comics. Is just I don't think it's enough to just say that you know it.
Hmm.
You know, I think, and because I feel this is a whole different rant, but I feel as though because of kind of the TikTok of it all, where
Hmm.
we become so, and this is not just TikTok, but you know what I mean, the internet.
Even on
Um,
Instagram, where like
yeah,
that's how a lot of comic accounts get big, I feel, is they
yeah,
just post
feats and
a couple
moments, and
panels
yeah,
and they get likes.
and there's no, because what I'm saying is I think that the enjoyment of reading it has become secondary to the knowledge of knowing it. Of
Yeah.
people go, oh, I know the Fantastic Four, I know Superman, or because I've read this synopsis, or
Hmm.
I've watched this video that tells me about it. And for a lot of people, that's enough. But I think that what people are forgetting is that these things are fun to read by yourself and they're enjoyable. And
Yeah.
I heard this from Joshua Williamson at some point. This really changed my perspective on how comic books are enjoyed. But he was in a class taught by Bendis on how to write comics. And
Hmm.
Bendis asked the whole class, he said, why do you want to write comic books? And everyone gave their own answer. I want to talk about this thing. I want to explore myself as a reader, as a writer. I want to, this is important to me. I want to say this. And then when everyone was done, Bendis said, you're all wrong because none of you said that you want to entertain people.
Mm.
None of you once said that you want to make entertainment that people enjoy, but that is the most important thing, is that people have to enjoy what they're reading.
Yeah.
You know, it can be thematically dense, but if it's boring, nobody's going to read it. And I think that that is kind of the thing that people forget about comic books, is that they don't just exist as something to pluck from. Their enjoyment. They are fiction. They're something that you're meant to do and enjoy by yourself. And I think
Hmm.
that I think that's awesome. You know,
Yeah. So what would
I think
you,
that's
out
cool.
of 10, rate The Dark Knight Returns? Is it a
Oh
10 out of 10
man,
for you?
yeah, yeah, I think so. I,
Let's-
I think I have a lot of 10 out of 10 comic books. I don't think I'm that stingy with it. I
mhm.
generally like most of the stuff I read, I would say, but this is definitely one of the top ones.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's pretty much all my questions on The Dark Knight Returns. However, I was
Uh-oh.
really excited that we were recording this weekend because I realized we're post Royal Rumble. And
Oh, here we go.
if you're still around, you don't have to run to dinner or anything. I kind of want to talk a little bit of wrestling with you because,
Okay.
admittedly, you're the one that got me into wrestling. I heard
Interesting.
you talking about it on I Recommend,
Oh,
which you
yes.
got to bring that back one day. That was a good show.
Maybe. Okay.
Um, I heard you talking about wrestling. I was like, okay, I'm interested here. And then I got into it when I started seeing footage of the WrestleMania 40 press conference where Cody's like, hold on.
Oh,
And,
last year. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, where Rock basically heel
Yes.
turns.
This is
And
bullshit. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And that's where because I remember you
Man.
posting on your story that you were pissed off
Yes,
about
The Rock stole
The
Cody's
Rock taking the moment.
WrestleMania. Oh man, I remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah, and so I started messaging you when I was seeing all this TikTok stuff, being like, "What just happened?" And
Yeah,
you explained it to me. So then I started paying attention via social media. I watched WrestleMania, and I've
it was
slowly
awesome.
gotten to the point that I'm watching Raw, I'm watching SmackDown, and especially now it's on Netflix. And because
You're
my dad,
buying more merch than I am. I'll say that.
yeah, I
I
love,
don't buy
I love
wrestling
it.
merch.
I got,
I've bought maybe one shirt in the past decade.
I got
Yeah, well,
my
look at that.
iPad case. I
Yeah.
love Cody Rhodes, and now
Yep.
CM Punk's my other one that I love. I've
Love Punk.
listened to the Colt Cabana interviews
Oh,
from back when
you
he left.
listen to that?
I
Oh my
listened to it.
god!
I listened
Wow.
to it.
I remember when that dropped, and it was just like a nuke, man. Oh, like
Hmm.
we've been wondering for months, why did Punk leave? What did he do? And that was unbelievable. That podcast.
Yeah, no,
Oh my god.
I've gone back. Also, I listened to it. And I was like, wow, this is all crazy stuff. I didn't realize that they got to a lawsuit and
Yes, about
that
the
their
doctor
friendship
suit their
ended
friend. Yes,
like
yes,
crazy.
yes,
So Royal Rumble happened. I'm
yes. It
like,
did
I'm
last
all
week.
in. What did you think about the Royal Rumble?
The show or the results?
Both.
I had a fun time watching the show. That was
Hmm.
good. I was with my friend. We were having fun. It was entertaining as they usually are. Royal Rumble is generally the one you could bet on as usually being pretty good every year, right?
Hmm.
Sometimes they suck. Oh my god, there was one a couple years ago that was just balls, but
Hmm.
generally they are pretty good. The Charlotte result was expected, I'll say.
I don't know anything
I
about her.
Yeah,
I know she's been out
Ric
for like
Flair's
what?
daughter.
I know she's Ric Flair's daughter, but she's been out for like two
December
years, right?
2023. Yeah.
Yeah. And like,
So
I don't know the big deal with her.
yeah,
So when she
she's
won, I was like,
just
okay.
yeah, she's one of those people you know about. Maybe you don't. The big dog Roman Reigns,
Yeah, I know about Roman Reigns.
but like I'm saying pre tribal chief.
Oh no, I don't know that then.
Wow. Okay.
Again, I'm new to it, which is why when you talk about like I don't want to be a gatekeeper and stuff,
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
gone on this talk before. I try not to, you know, I feel like fandom to like hate or nitpick has to be earned. I'm still
Yes.
fresh into wrestling, so I'm just kind of like,
So
this stuff's cool to me. I'm gonna see
yeah,
what's happening.
I think it's still cool, man. I really do enjoy it. Okay. All right. So I'll give you a lore drop right here.
Okay.
It's gonna blow your mind. Actually, I didn't even realize that there were people that existed that like didn't get into it when Roman was not the tribal chief.
You want to have your heart
Um,
broken a little bit?
sure.
I learned about John Cena from him showing up in the Nickelodeon Fred movies.
Fred movies. Oh wow, that I knew that was happening. Bro, I've been John Cena since day one.
Mm.
I
Yeah, I was
love
never
John
into
Cena.
wrestling as a kid. I
I
saw
have
the
a picture on my
commercials
desk.
for the toys.
of
Oh
me
wow,
wearing John Cena merch. Look at
that's
that.
crazy.
Yeah. 2007 it says.
Hmm.
Um but okay. About the Shield.
I know about the Shield.
Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose
I went back to
debut.
understand more of the Roman Reigns stuff. I went back to watch where Seth Rollins betrays Roman Reigns, and I watched that whole
Yeah,
Raw
yeah.
episode.
So, oh, we always have a plan B. That
Hmm.
guy in the crowd screams, "No!" Yeah, I love that. Um, so okay, let's go to that point. So after that, that was the breakup of the Shield, right? And the
Yeah,
Shield were poised to be our three big new guys that we're going to bank on, right?
yeah.
Roman in particular. You in that Colt Cabana podcast, which was before any
Punk
big
talks
thing.
about how
Punk,
the Shield was his idea.
but Punk also talks about how they told him that that he needed to make Roman look good.
Yeah, where it's like you got to make him look really strong, and they
Yes,
kept like multiple people kept coming to him and saying it. And he's like, "I know how to do the job. You know what would make him look
yes,
strong if they beat me." Well, no, you're
yeah,
supposed to win. Just I know what I'm doing.
yeah, exactly, yeah, exactly. And so that predates most uh, of the stuff I'm going to tell you, but it's very interesting in hindsight. But Royal Rumble 2015, do you know Daniel Bryan?
I know the name. I
Yes,
don't know much about him.
yes, yes. Uh, Bryan Danielson, as he's known, his actual real name.
Hmm.
He's he's the goat. He's the best wrestler I think of all time, in my
Okay.
opinion, and at least like technical, physical wrestler of all time.
Hmm.
Um, and people loved him back in the day. I was a huge Daniel Bryan fan. And there's this thing called the Yes Movement, where people, WWE did not believe in Daniel Bryan. This was under Vince and everything.
Hmm.
So they purposefully like buried him. They purposefully made him look weak. They purposefully did all this stuff.
I'm very happy that I
You're
have gotten
living in a
into
post
wrestling
Vince.
post Vince
Yes.
McMahon.
Yes.
Because I can now when I say it's like I'm a wrestling fan, I'm
It's
happy that
not,
I can say
yeah.
I'm liking current stuff and I wasn't watching when any
Yes.
craziness was going on, especially watching that documentary on Netflix.
Yes.
Um, but I know of the name because CM Punk talked about Daniel Bryan and how he got kind of screwed over,
Yes.
um,
So
and how
they
like it
used
should have been his year or whatever.
they used to screw Daniel Bryan over all the time because they did not think that he was like worth investing in. But the fans
Hmm.
were telling WWE, this is the guy we want. We want him to win. We want him to be champion. We love this guy.
Hmm.
And it got to the point where that Royal Rumble where Punk quit,
Yeah.
that was like kind of the lid pops off the pot, and it was in a sense where the water starts boiling over, and everyone watching the product is fucking livid.
Hmm.
We lost CM Punk, you pushed him away, and you're not gonna push Daniel Bryan. Yada yada happens. Daniel Bryan wins the main event of WrestleMania 30, wins both belts because people forced him into that match. People would not have accepted the main event of WrestleMania had Daniel Bryan not have been in it, right?
Very much a Cody Rhodes
Very
situation
much a
then.
Cody Rhodes situation. Yes, Cody. Let's say honestly, like the "We Want Cody" thing was like a tenth of the Yes movement and what that
Mm.
was. Right? It was crazy. Anyway, so Daniel Bryan wins the belt. He's the heroes, the people's champion. Not literally, obviously, but he's the champion of the people. And then he gets injured. He breaks his neck, so he has to relinquish the
Ooh.
belts. So next year, people are going to Royal Rumble 2015, and they're saying, okay, we want Daniel Bryan to win the Royal Rumble so he can have his comeback, because he didn't lose the belt. He had to relinquish it, and we're still on the Daniel Bryan train. We still love this guy. Daniel
Hmm.
Bryan comes down to the Royal Rumble, is in it for 10 minutes, gets eliminated by Bray Wyatt. And then the next
Hmm.
entrant is Cody's brother, Goldust, and it just says Shattered Dreams. So they're making fun of the audience for wanting this guy to be
Ooh.
the guy. They're actively saying, we just shattered your dreams. Like, there's no way that was not intentional.
Hmm.
That was meta as fuck. They're flipping you off, right?
Hmm.
WWE. Roman Reigns wins that Royal Rumble
Oh, he won the
2015.
2015 one.
Yeah, that's the one where The
Okay.
Rock helped him. And I don't know if you've seen, you got to look this up after, but there's a clip of The Rock holding up Roman's arm and they're being booed to hell. And The Rock looks at him just like, what the, I can be booed? Like, I didn't know that I could be in circumstances where I would be booed, right?
Hmm.
And Roman Reigns is now the people's devil. Nobody likes this guy. He's not Daniel Bryan. We want Daniel Bryan. He's not Daniel Bryan. He goes into Mania. He fights Lesnar. That's when Seth does his heist of the century, wins the belt,
Hmm.
Money in the
Cashes in the Money
Bank.
in the Bank, right?
Yes, which was awesome. But then the next few years is just them pushing Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns main events the next year of WrestleMania. He main events the year after that. He beats the Undertaker at WrestleMania, right? And
Now,
he's
at some
just
point, he has that moment with John Cena where he forgets his lines or whatever, and
yes,
Cena
at
like
some that's
humiliates him,
2017. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. But at no point do they also go, people hate this guy. Let's push him as a heel. They keep pushing him as a baby face, even though everyone hates him
Yeah.
to hell. They
Hmm.
want him to die. They do not like this guy, right? And that was Roman Reigns. That was when he was the big dog. So COVID finally comes around. This is 5 years of people hating Roman Reigns. When he comes back, that is when
Paul
they push him as
Heyman's
a
his
heel.
manager, right?
Yes, and that is when people start that when they push him as a heel, when he becomes the tribal chief, that is when he like fulfills his potential. But there's a
Hmm.
good 5 years where everyone hated Roman Reigns because he was not a good guy. That people,
Hmm.
but they wanted him to be like John Cena or something, like
Yeah.
and he just
I've
wasn't.
I've seen commentary of like, with Roman coming back after SummerSlam, they're like, yeah, Roman's finally getting the babyface treatment that
Yes,
like
it took
Vince
them 10
McMahon and
years.
that administration always wanted him to have
Yeah,
and just
well,
couldn't
yeah,
get it right.
because I was talking to my friend about this when he loses the belt to Cody last year at WrestleMania. It's kind of this moment where by the time of that, you could argue it was already a year too late of for
Hmm.
Roman to lose the belt, and we were sick of him again.
Yeah.
We were in for the 1,000 day reign in theory, but it just didn't. By the time it was ending, it was not like it just was boring in the moment, right? It's like, oh, Roman
Hmm.
wins, whatever. But when he lost it, immediately you get the okay, you know what? He put his time in, and now we can remember it because at least the moment of him losing it was so good.
Hmm.
We can go, okay, he put his time in, he carried this company, and we respect him for it.
Hmm.
We respect him for that time. So when he comes back, he is like this conquering hero, even though he has not apologized for a single thing he's done. We like him because we respect what he's done now.
Hmm.
And I think that that's kind of the
Well,
reaction
I
for
also
Roman
think he got
Reigns.
propped up by people hating Solo so much.
Yeah, oh yes, that's very true. That Solo was not what they wanted him to be. Yeah,
Hmm.
but yeah, God, Roman Reigns, what a character.
I gotta go back and watch some of that old Bloodline stuff because I love everything that's been going on since he
Yeah,
returned. I will say his return at SummerSlam, I watched all of SummerSlam, and that's the point I started watching like weekly because I was like, all
yeah,
right, I'm invested in this Bloodline stuff. I want to see where it
it's
goes.
so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
So
Bloodline has
now
been really good. I mean, just
with
for 5 years, it's been
yeah,
really
but
good.
with the Royal Rumble, who did you? We talked about it quickly over text. I really thought it was
CM
going to be
Punk.
CM Punk.
Yeah, I thought so too. I thought so
Because
too.
I feel like it's poetic that the guy that got kind of screwed out of his WrestleMania moment follows the guy that almost got screwed out of his WrestleMania moment.
Yeah, oh Cody. Yeah, yeah. I just thought it felt like his moment.
Hmm.
I never thought Cena. I did not think Roman Reigns. I just thought it made sense for Punk. And I guess I mean I'm not against the Jey Uso win.
Hmm.
It just wasn't what I expected. It was there's a second where when he eliminates Cena, you go, oh, Cena's out. Oh, Jey Uso just won the Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So I think I think it's cool though. I don't really give a shit. You know what I mean? Like I don't he's selling merch.
And
People
he's a
like him. He
crowd
gets the
favorite.
reactions.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm proud of him. I'm happy for how far he's come. I remember when I could not tell them apart. The Usos. I remember that nobody could because they weren't characters. But now, the Bloodline Vortex, they've become characters. Jey Uso has become
Hmm.
main event Jey Uso. I'm
Yeah.
happy for him. I think it's cool. I don't care. He's gonna beat Gunther. I don't really care. You know.
So who do you want to win the Elimination Chamber?
I still don't think Cena. But if it's gonna be Cena, which it's probably gonna be Cena, he's
Mhm.
gonna fight Cody. Then I think that Cody should still win, and I think he should murder John Cena, and I think that should be the heel turn.
Well, they started it with Cody and Kevin Owens just
Yes,
demolishing him.
which was awesome. Yeah,
Yeah. And It'd be interesting. I do want to see CM Punk versus Cody because those are my two favorites right now. So it'd almost be
Yeah.
like my favorite teams being in the Super Bowl. Not that I watch football, but it would be
Yeah,
like,
me neither.
ooh, who to root
Yeah.
for? What's gonna
Yeah.
happen? But yeah. I mean, I know they want Cena to get his 17th. So
Yeah, I almost think that they could not do that, and then the lesson could be like, it's such a for me that's such a John Cena lesson of, well, I put in the hard work and I tried and I didn't win,
hmm.
but it's not all about winning,
Hmm.
something like that. But that would be corny as fuck. I do think that they will have him win at some point. I don't know if I really care about that. I don't know if I care about the stat padding. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's already John Cena. You know?
Hmm.
I don't know.
So what's your dream WrestleMania? Who
What do you
fights
mean?
who?
Oh
Like
man.
for the matches, women's
I
championships.
have no
What's your dream
idea.
lineup?
I know that after Roman beat Cody the first year, I
Hmm.
could not live without seeing that rematch.
Yeah.
And I think that became my dream match in a sense, where like the rematch felt so big, like they had built an ultimate bad guy and finally an ultimate good guy, where it
Yeah.
felt like, and they kept them separate for so long that they felt like genuinely their crossover was monumental.
Hmm.
I don't really know if I have a dream match. I that was, I think, my dream. That moment, that just WrestleMania 40 main event was like, I feel like I could not have dreamt that better.
Yeah.
You know, God, that was such a moment. I was in a bar with all my friends. My girlfriend were screaming. I was losing my mind, dude.
I was watching it here at home. And so a funny thing is while I was getting to wrestling, unfortunately my cat wasn't doing well. It was like some of his last weeks. So I was
Oh,
watching the wrestling with my cat and I remember I was going back watching like old stuff to catch up. So like Cody's return at the not Royal Rumble, WrestleMania
Mania,
38.
yeah.
And I remember like my cat who, he was on his last legs or whatever. He saw Cody's entrance and he made a sound I'll never forget. He was just like, "Oh." Like this is
Oh,
cool.
this is the guy.
And I was
That's
like, yes,
awesome.
Blackout. Yes, Cody Rhodes.
That is very cool.
But yeah, no, so where was I going with this? I don't even remember. But no, if I were to think about matches for WrestleMania, I would love to see CM Punk versus Cody.
Cody. Yeah.
However, I feel like they will do Cena versus Cody. I
Yeah,
feel like we would then get Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins or Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins and CM
I,
Punk.
that one does not appeal to me. I think Roman
Yeah.
and Punk would be really cool.
Hmm. Well,
You know.
they're gonna do something with this favor with Paul Heyman.
Yeah, yeah,
And
100%.
I'm curious if the favor will be, Paul Heyman getting Punk a WrestleMania moment after losing the Elimination
Yeah.
Chamber.
I don't know.
Which I wouldn't like the sound of that. I would want him to earn it, if you know.
Yeah.
But and then as for the women's side, like I don't know anything about Charlotte Flair, so I don't know if her versus Rhea Ripley would be like a big
Oh
deal.
my God. My whole point about Roman was that Charlotte is that now. She's
Oh,
like
okay.
she's like people view her like, oh, she's just always got to win. She's always pushed. She's always like
Mm.
like that. Super Cena. That was when Cena was like at his peak and he
Hmm.
never lost any fights and everyone suffered for John Cena being the top guy.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it feels like with Charlotte.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I really like the stuff that they had been doing with Liv Morgan versus Rhea Ripley and
Yeah.
like the whole Judgment Day thing. And I also like I do the Judgment Day's growing on me. I used to hate them. Now post
They've fallen on me. I don't really care for. They used to be cool to
I'm
me.
kind of getting into it a little bit because there is a comedic aspect there that I've been
Yeah.
enjoying. Um, like, the first time that I really like started liking Damian Priest was when Jey Uso goes up to him and goes, "Tell me it's true. Is Rhea Ripley single?" And Damian Priest is like, "I mean, maybe." Like they kind of
Yeah.
have a moment. So I'm curious. I'm into wrestling now. It is a fun time.
It is
Uh,
fun.
I'm curious to see where things go to
Hmm.
WrestleMania because I feel like Cody's story was starting to get stale with the whole Kevin Owens stuff
Yeah, but I
and
think the teasing of Cody like just
heel
losing
turn.
his mind over this. Yeah.
Heavy is the head that wears the crown.
Yes,
That
I
I'm
love that.
really into.
Yes, me too.
Yeah.
Big
So
time.
we'll see.
Yeah, we
But
will.
all right. With that in mind, I'll do my little outro script here. I have none of these memorized yet, so
One
um
day.
one day. Thank you once again for visiting your local Comic Con. If you like today's discussion, please feel free to check out other episodes we've done. All episodes of the podcast are available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and SoundCloud, with new episodes dropping every Monday at midnight. Please feel free to subscribe to the show and follow my socials at Local Comic Con for clips, what we're reading in the future, and more fun. If you'd like to support the show, I encourage you to subscribe to our Patreon to gain behind the scenes content and other resources for both reading and digital creation. Thank you so much for visiting, and I'll see you the next time. Any closing words, Tyler?
Is Monday at midnight like Monday morning or is it Tuesday morning?
It would be Monday morning so that people can listen to it while they're driving to work.
So like out of Sunday into Monday, not Monday. Okay.
Yeah, that was the idea anyway. And with that, we close the episode.